briefing. We are here for the CPDC hearing of March 13th, 2023. Joined with me in person on the commission is John Weston, Chair Heather Klisch, Associate Tony DiRezzo, Mark Wetzel, thank you for reminding me. New member Mark Wetzel, and remotely we have Pamela Adrian also joining us as well, which will require roll call votes for acknowledgement to the chair. The meeting will follow its standard process. The applicant will present their application to the planning board. I will be able to share on screen some of the plans or any other context that might be needed. And then the board will provide question and comment themselves before opening to public comment. Public comment, we ask that you, in person, please raise your hand for the chair to acknowledge you. If you are on Zoom, we ask that you stay muted and use the raise hand feature found under reactions, or simply raise your hand on the camera and I'll look to make sure the chair can acknowledge your comment. Outside of that, I can add that the meeting is being recorded and broadcasted locally by RCTV. And I think that does it from me, Heather.
That's great. Okay. So our first item of business is the preliminary subdivision application for 0 Annette Lane. We are absent, well, our secretary resigned, so we don't have anybody filling that office. That's probably some business we should take care of either later tonight or the next meeting. So I'll just take a volunteer to read the notice of the public hearing into the record.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81S and Reading Subdivision Regulations, Section 5.1, the Community Planning and Development Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 13th at 7:30 p.m. in the Select Board Room and at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. And through the remote and online measures below to consider the application for one lot preliminary subdivision submitted by Peter Seibold for land located at 0 Annette Lane, Assessor's Map 38, Lot 139 in Reading. A copy of the application and company plans are available at the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing. If you'd like me to slow down, let me know.
Very efficient. Somebody's angling for the secretary job.
Too bad I'm an associate.
We can take care of that. All righty. Is there somebody to present on this?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Attorney Robert Galvin. I'm an attorney from the South Shore. I'm from Marshfield. I represent Peter Seibold, who's seated here on the front row. With me is Andrew Pandolf from Vineyard Engineering. Andrew is going to make a brief presentation regarding the preliminary subdivision plan. Back in January, Andrew submitted a list of waivers. I supplemented that with a little bit of a recitation of what the waivers were in a letter that I sent earlier today. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it, but I can summarize it very briefly. But just giving you a very quick highlight. This is a single lot subdivision. It's a leftover lot after a subdivision that was originally designed in 1985. The town is in a butter to the, I believe, the north. Owns a parcel of land that was taken by tax taking. The land has been divided since the original 1985 subdivision on one occasion on the opposite side of Annette Lane. If you're looking at Annette Lane on the plan that's up on the screen there, you see it coming in from the east to the west. And if Withy pulls that up, the lot is located basically on the northerly side of the layout, unconstructed layout of Annette Lane, which connects all the way through to Applegate Lane. That's actually also a access and utility easement. On the northerly side of the property is where the town's parcel of land is, and the town's parcel has the benefit of a drainage easement that basically encumbers about a third of the northernmost corner of the lot. When this lot was originally developed, there were a whole host of more lots there, and it was believed that the drainage would run from south to north, basically through a variable width portion of the property. And I've reviewed the easement for that portion of the lot, and it is variable width as it passes through that left, or the top portion of that lot. So I think I'll let Andrew discuss the details of the plans, then would like to talk to you just a few minutes about the waivers.
Okay, thank you.
How you doing? My name is Andrew Pandolf from Vineyard Engineering, with our land surveyors for this project for Mr. Seabold. So the parcels identified as parcel 39 on tax map 38, and it is located in the S20 zone. It's also identified as 0 in that lane, and as Attorney Galvin said, it's located at the west end of Annette Lane, and currently it's a vacant wooden lot consisting of 54,942 square feet. There are some wetlands located on the property in the northern and southern portions, and municipal water and sewer mains located within a 50-foot wide easement located in the southern portion of the site. In terms of topography, the highest part of the lot is in the center of the lot, and its topography then slopes down to the north and south towards those wetland areas. This lot, as it stands now, conforms to all S20 zoning requirements with the exception of frontage. The lot has 50.03 feet of frontage on Annette Lane, which is less than the required 120 feet. Andrew, could I have you switch to the next plan, please? Thank you very much. So the applicant's proposing to construct a 28-foot by 60-foot wide single-family home in the central portion of the lot. In order to create the required frontage, we're proposing a one-lot subdivision of the lot and extending the layout of Annette Lane, connecting it to Applegate Lane. So this is our proof of concept plan to prove that we could construct the roadway if we had to. And the way that we would accomplish that is, in creating the required amount of frontage, is we would construct a 145-foot long elevated roadway, like a footbridge, over the wetland area in the southern portion of the lot. This would create approximately 187 feet of frontage, which, conforms with the zoning requirements. And the house, as we propose it here, and the lot would conform with all other zoning requirements. Andrew, could I have you switch? Thanks. So due to the limited scope of the project, and it's a one-lot subdivision, we're constructing one single-family home. Instead of constructing this elevated footbridge, what we're proposing is to extend the existing pavement layout of Annette Lane by approximately 30 feet in order to access a single 19-foot wide driveway that would give access to the house. There's some benefits to constructing, just extending the pavement and creating a driveway as opposed to the full right-of-way construction. It'd be less intrusive to the wetland area, but it would also prevent any potential increased traffic in the area that would result from connecting Applegate Lane and Annette Lane. We'd be creating sort of a cut-through between those two subdivisions if we were to construct the footbridge. The driveway would be constructed in such a way that would be able to accommodate emergency vehicles. The water and sewer for the home, the water and sewer services for the home would connect to the existing municipal service mains that's located in the southern portion of the lot. And the project would also involve installing a utility pole on the west or left side of the driveway to allow for connection to electric and telecom services. And in addition to that, there's an existing hydrant that's located right in the middle of the proposed driveway. So what we would do is relocate that hydrant to the immediate opposite side of Annette Lane. And finally, sort of in terms of stormwater management, the impervious area created by this development would be managed by underground groundwater infiltration chambers that would be located on the north side of the proposed residence. And any grading that may be needed would be done in such a way that would prevent stormwater runoff to abutting properties. We keep all stormwater on our lot and not to create any adverse impacts to anyone else. And the way that we're proposing it now, the house would be outside of all the wetland resource areas, their associated buffer zones, and we would stay outside of that drain easement that's located on the northern portion of the property. With that, I'd like to invite Attorney Galvin back up.
So, I don't know if you looked at our waiver list, but Andrew did submit a waiver list back in January. I've incorporated his waiver list and the reasons for that waiver list in my letter today. We're asking for a number of waivers, which would be typical of a single lot subdivision, because obviously we're proposing to do something that doesn't look very much like a subdivision. And the rules and regulations would require an extraordinary amount of paving. There's a whole bunch of test borings and things like that would be required, but if we're not going to actually construct that road, we've asked for those waivers. Just for the record, I could indicate there sections 5.11B8, 6.11C3, 6.11D3, 6.114, 6.11D5, 7.17, 7.18, 7.11, 7.11A, 7.1111, 7.61, and 80. These are all closely related to one another. One of the things we asked you to do would be to waive the requirement to show topography within 100 feet of the locus, which would be on abutting parcels. You really get a good flavor of what the topography is like when you look at this plan. I do have the original subdivision plan if anybody is interested in seeing it. The drainage pattern as originally envisioned was going to come from the south through the north and through the back third of the property, as I indicated. But the way we've situated this single family home on this lot and the way we propose to infiltrate the impervious surfaces, there will be no drainage impact on any abutting property. So we think that that's not necessarily something that should be required to show all the topography in the abutting lots. 6.11C3 required existing and proposed profiles of the roadway. Obviously, we're proposing to do something that's significantly less. We're really functionally only adding to a net lane about 30 feet at approximately the same width. A net lane being already an accepted public way in the town of Reading. We've asked for a waiver for the traffic study. A single family home doesn't generate anything but de minimis traffic impact. And it is a single family home, very much like everybody else in the neighborhood. This lot almost has 3 times what's required for lot area in the S20 district. And as Andrew indicated, meets or exceeds all the other setback requirements and only is missing the frontage requirement. We've asked for a waiver of the environmental impact report. We will have to make a filing with the Conservation Commission, which is typically the last filing that's made with anybody. But again, we're outside all of the resource areas and we're outside all of the buffer zones. And we believe when we meet with the commission and explain to them the grading on the lot, they'll see that there's no adverse impact to any wetland resource areas from this project. So we're asking for a waiver of the environmental impact report. We've asked for a waiver of the test boring requirement because obviously we're only asking for 30 feet of an extension to a net lane. We're asking for a waiving of granite curbing, mostly because there isn't granite curbing out there, and this isn't a very large subdivision where that's something that the planning board would typically require. We are asking for a waiver of the installation of granite monuments, basically because this is going to remain a paper street and we're not going to look to develop it any more than the 30 feet that we have. In terms of the bituminous concrete, that we're only asking be permitted to pave that additional 30 feet. The right-of-way width being 60 feet. It's not 60 feet in that area, so we're asking for a waiver of that. We're not proposing any additional street lighting. That would be intrusive to any abutting property. Would probably only have a post lamp, something that would be equivalent to what's in the neighborhood. We are asking for the Section 8 waiver of the construction of the roadway. So what I would suggest to you is that the town and the board have the authority to waive strict compliance with the subdivision rules and regulations where that's allowed by federal, state, or local law.
Well, excuse me. So why are we doing this exactly?
Pardon me, we're not quite to the point of public comment,
Oh,
so if
I'm
you,
sorry. Sorry.
what we'll do is we'll let the presenter finish presenting, and then the commission will ask questions, and then we'll open it up for public comment, all right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So as I indicated, where the action is allowed by federal, state, or local law is in the public interest and where is not inconsistent with the purpose and intent of the subdivision rules and regulations. The board is also authorized to require on-site or off-site improvements associated with any waiver requests. And I would submit to the board that the board can grant this, the requested waivers. This is a new single-family home on a very large lot for this neighborhood. It has a very short extension of the public way. This could be added to the public way, should anybody require that. My client would be fully responsible for maintaining any extension of Annette Lane, not asking for any other contribution or responsibility for any other person. We would covenant and agree in any way, shape, or form that that's required by the board to maintain that. We believe that the waivers would result in a appropriate use of the land that wouldn't have any adverse drainage or other impact on any abutting property, far preferable to any other type of development that could ever be proposed on this type of a lot. And none of these, nothing about this proposal will create an adverse impact to anybody else. Certainly do understand that maybe people have been accustomed over the years to seeing nothing on this particular lot. Lots can always be developed, but the appropriate development is the responsible thing to do here. And Mr. Siebel is proposing what we feel is a very, very modestly sized home, centrally situated on the lot, designed in a manner that will not cause any adverse impact to anybody else. Mr. Siebel has built other homes. He's a very responsible and responsive person. If there's some abutters concerned that we've not paid attention to, we're certainly willing to consider that, whether that's additional screening or buffering, but we will be able to leave other than in the area of the driveway and in an area that's cleared for the house, a very large area in natural state. The entirety of the rear, probably 30 to 40 feet on all sides. And certainly leaving the area near the wetland is something that we would absolutely be looking to do.
I have a question.
Excuse me for a minute. For folks who are joining in online, I'm going to ask a favor and ask everyone to mute so that we can hear from the presenter. We're getting a lot of.
I don't like that presenter.
I have a question. Can you answer it?
No, we cannot.
And we're being hacked right now.
That was quite.
You guys please stop. Hey, is this what usually goes around here?
Oh my god, I got a trip to a place called Auschwitz.
This is the first time it's happened.
This is the first
Hey,
time.
I'm Jaden. In a shot.
So who's trying to live there, me or him? Is it gonna be a mansion there or what?
Hey, I'm JJ.
Hey, JJ, I'm Scott.
I'm just saying, you overplanned this.
Hey,
You fucking, you fuck.
Here we go.
Heather, I think you need to get their IP addresses and get them banned from this meeting.
Right, I think we first need to get this meeting.
I'm at the top.
Sure is a lot of them.
Andrew, may I make a suggestion?
Sure can.
Kill the meeting.
I'm trying to put anybody who is speaking up back in the waiting room so that they can't interrupt. They're using common names, so it's hard to know who is, not serious about joining the meeting. If I were to close the public, or I guess hybrid portion of the meeting, it could impact the status of the applications due to the hearing notices.
We'd actually have to. that-
We'd have
the
to
rules,
adjourn.
We'd have to adjourn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know, I didn't look at the hearing notice closely enough,
Yeah.
but sometimes
Actually, that's.
you have a board member.
You're
that's
going
participating
on a trip.
remotely, though.
Yes.
Do you want to just call for
Scrap
recess?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what, Andrew, let's call a recess.
Okay.
We're not going to adjourn, we're gonna
Yep.
call a recess. Pam, if you don't mind, we're gonna put what I would suggest is we put everybody in the waiting room while we figure out how to bring everybody back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a, thanks, Heather.
You know, some of the abutters are here, and if their names were up there, I bet they could probably help you identify the people that are actually supposed to be here.
Yeah,
There's a
that's not
few
very-
people that I know are good
No.
players. I mean, it's hard again when they're just using common names to know who's serious about joining and who is not. So,
It's helpful to have some-
drawing all over my screen. Okay.
To reiterate the procedures. Thank you, Andrew.
So, all part of the gig.
Normally.
Not normal.
Andrew,
No.
geez.
For Pete's sakes, who the hell is? Oh, this is not going to plan already. So, goodness gracious. Oh my.
Sorry, Andrew, I missed that.
No, thank you for noticing.
can you change the meeting to require waiting room?
It is a required waiting room.
Do you have the ability to take phone calls or
What do you mean?
like where you shut off the online thing but allowed people to participate via telephone call?
We do. I think that's going to be on the brink of like messing up with the hybrid way because not everybody will have access to a phone that easily. And when you're on the phone, you can't see what's going on.
Whew. All right.
I'm sure glad I called you.
Good first meeting. Yeah.
Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Mark.
It's a fun town.
Yeah.
Oh, there is another good thing that I just found that we can do if that happens again. Under security, there's suspend participant activities. So everybody, we're going to try to do this again.
And also lock the meeting, suspend participant activities if we have to. Yeah, I'm getting more nervous as the night goes on, I won't lie to you, but thank you all for bearing with us as we work through some of these issues. So we came out of recess. I'm going to reiterate the hybrid Zoom procedures, and we're going to see how things go from there. So this is the hybrid meeting of the Cpdc hearing of March 13th, 2023. We allow both in-person activity and remote hybrid activity through Zoom meeting program. For those to back up, the applications will follow their normal procedure. The applicant will provide their summary application to the board. The board is going to provide question and comment amongst themselves before opening to public comment. Once the hearing is open to public comment, please raise your hand for the chair to address you if you are in person. If you are on Zoom, we ask that you use the raise hand feature or just hop on camera, raise your hand, and I'll look to acknowledge you for the chair to call on you. Please, when acknowledged, come to the front or unmute. State your name and address for the record. We will see how things go from there. So I think we have a good group right now. So I guess from there we are set to reopen. I'm keeping my eyes on the Zoom for any negligence, but hopefully all works out. So again, for CPDC, we have John Weston, Chair Heather Klisch, Tony D'Arezzo, Mark Wetzel in person. Pamela Adrian is joined through us on the Zoom program. I'm Andrew McNichol, Community Development Director, and I think we are good to go. So to remind all, we were in the midst of the Annette Lane hearing. We were at waiver discussion. So I guess we can pick up from there if appropriate.
I think I really kind of finished my comments, so that's the first time it's happened to me.
It's been a while. Got lazy.
Obviously, if there were any questions about the project that Andrew and I and Mr. Siebel are here, we're happy to answer them. We do think it's a sensible use of the land, it being a very large parcel for the zoning district, and we really don't think there's going to be any adverse impact. And I certainly understand that it's new and different for everybody that's lived in the area, but again, it's an appropriate use of the land, which will, we think, improve the value of real estate, not detract from it. Thank you.
Questions, comments, and I don't know, Andrew, if you want to bring up the if it's all scribbled all over now, or if you want to bring up the.
Should not be. I can bring up the plan. Yep.
May I suggest you let Pam go first in case we need to shut down the rest of the.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pam, did you have any comments or questions?
What I'm seeing is a large number of waivers. I think these probably need to be voted on individually. Yeah? Can you hear me?
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know the answer to that actually. But
Unless
we can vote on them individually, or we could choose to probably to vote on them all together.
Unless a
lot,
board
though.
member has a concern with any of them, I would say we could vote on them as a whole.
Yeah, we have the
Yeah.
option to do
Yeah.
that unless there's, yeah.
Do you want to hear my objections?
Yes.
I think we still need test borings. We've got wetlands, but I still think we need test borings. I have no problems with their changes to the curbing and monuments and lighting, since it's a single home that's going to be back there. I'm assuming it's going to have light that comes on and off depending on motion detectors. I don't think it needs sidewalks. Doesn't need straight trees, though I hope they don't take down too many trees. I see a number of them on the lot. And those are my only comments.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Comments, questions?
Can we just go through process so that,
Yeah.
so that it's clear and sort of what our role is and what we,
Kind of what our purview is.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the right word. So I don't know if you, right, if anyone has sort of a good overview or a good summary of how to.
In the package, there is a document, and Andrew, why don't you start with an overview of what our purview is?
Sure.
Because there's a lot to this, and different bodies have different areas that they are legally allowed to approve.
Yeah.
So the CPDC's role in subdivision comes through what are both the state Mass Chapter 40A and our local subdivision rules and regulations. The purview from CPDC comes to the right-of-way development and subsequent waiver requests from said right-of-way, and also to the purview to ensure that the proposed tracks meet zoning requirements, bulk dimensional requirements, required frontage, required lot area, that the house will meet setbacks in a conceptual nature and so on. So the larger standing is what I had previously mentioned, that right of way, both in terms of the design, the requirements, and the waivers requested and the merits of those waivers for public benefit. CPDC's purview is not in wetland implication or impacts. Said such impacts are gone through with the Conservation Commission. So this process here starts with what's known as the preliminary subdivision plan. And that is really a non-buildable plan. It's really a conceptual plan for the applicant to gauge CPDC, I guess, thoughts and feelings on requested waivers on the right-of-way design. What that would lead to subsequently is a definitive subdivision plan. Definitive subdivision plans typically include a bit more detail on that right-of-way design, drainage study, impacts, traffic, typically if it's a large subdivision tract, and just a bit more detail in the definitive. The definitive, if approved, is then what's used for plan endorsement and future building of the lots and houses related to them. So right now we stand in this preliminary application setting to discuss this project as a concept and its requested waivers. Really, again, related to that right-of-way design. So the proof of plan that Andrew had mentioned earlier is proof that you meet a by right subdivision. And there's many ways to do that. In general, it's a 60-foot right-of-way, cul-de-sac bulb, full sidewalks, street trees, etc. However, when extending off an existing lane, there's some play there to be able to proof off of an existing right-of-way, in this case, a 50-foot right-of-way. So that proof basically shows that you have the by right subdivision concept, and rather than expend and build what could be a 60-foot right-of-way in a general subdivision and full pavement width, the waivers are a discussion for CPDC to gauge what's appropriate for the application and the public benefits related to that. So I hope that summed it up well. There's a lot of nuance in subdivision applications and longstanding history, but in general, that's the typical role of CPDC. But anyone, please chime in.
So one question I have on that, and was in that other summary that you didn't go into, but right, our role in the the approving authority is not us; it's the Board of Health. Or do we both approve? I couldn't quite understand.
I saw that it also goes to the Board of Health, right?
And before you, the other question that I had, or the way that I thought I understood it, is that we make a recommendation to the Board of Health and not actually an approval. And it seemed to be different between the preliminary plan and, right, the preliminary plan, we could, whether we recommend or not, we provide comment, right? And if we provide comment that's very negative, then, right, the applicant can take that and do what they want, but it's not a disapproval. It's really the final subdivision plan. And I guess my real question is, how does that play in with the Board of Health?
So the Board of Health so the applications are submitted to the planning board.
Yeah.
You are the overarching authority related to subdivision rules and regulations. The Board of Health receives a copy in order to determine, typically in general in standing, it's for when there's not a sewer connection and it's a septic proposal for a lot or lots in general. They then would take that and take a look to make sure that the land is suitable for such, provide any comments or conditions to, it is a bit odd, they do vote separately from the planning board to recommend the subdivision or not, but overarching, it's your authority on the subdivision rules and regs. So the Board of Health can make recommendations, and typically when there's a sewer connection, there's not many conditions or comments from the Board of Health. Typically we delegate to the health director here in Reading, who has received a copy of this plan and noted that there's a sewer connection in this case. So defaulted, we don't take it to the Board of Health, which then subsequently, I guess because we don't ask them for a vote here in Reading, it defaults to an approval by the Board of Health. So yes, again, a lot of nuance there. And
so thank you.
Yes.
That helps me, and I think probably helps others to
Yes.
understand where we sit on this, in terms of how the process works. I'll chime in here on sort of it's hard to talk about this, right, without talking about the waivers and the sort of the nuance here. So, clearly recognize that this fits in with the requirement, and because it does, right, the property owner has the right to subdivide. There's really not a question about that. I guess some of the waivers, that being said, the thing on not the plans, but just the overarching development scheme is that my concern here, right, is really about safety, right? So they have the right to build here because they can provide a connecting street between Applegate and Annette, right? But the truth is that a net is a dead end, right? And if it was a dead end in some other configuration where they couldn't bump through, they would be required to have a cul-de-sac, right? As part of the,
Right, in a standard proof design.
in a standard proof design, which I don't know, I haven't done it here, but I'm guessing would be pretty tough to prove out here. That being said, right, so there's this weird thing going on between legal requirements because you can draw something on the paper versus what you would do if you constructed something. And I guess the real getting down to my real concern is you have a house here at the end of a one-way of a dead end street, and then another very long driveway. I can't imagine that the fire department would be happy with this.
Sorry.
Yeah. So there's a difference between what they're legally allowed to do, and then, right, this is my point, the health and safety implications of building that house.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, right? There's a difference here between the legality of it and the safety of it. And I don't know where we stand on that, but I'm concerned about the safety of having a house there at the end of a dead end, plus the end of that, which you wouldn't be able to have the fire apparatus
Without the
around.
intention of having that road actually ever built.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm just going to go through my other waivers. So that's not really a waiver question. That's just like a question of approval. Yeah. On the waivers, right, I guess we have had, and I think you even mentioned, right, we do need all the topography on the surrounding, the surrounding properties to really sort of understand what's going on there. You're going to have to do it for the conservation. So, I wouldn't be not so sure I'm in favor of that waiver. Also, it actually doesn't matter what's there. I've never given a waiver on the curbing, and especially here where the curbing probably has some implication on drainage. And it's sort of odd to have a waiver on bituminous concrete for a roadway, even if it's only 50 feet. That's it.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm more distracted than usual because I'm like, oh, 5 people in the waiting room. But you got that over there. Yes, would you please?
Sure, part of the address.
Sure.
Concerns. So, in terms of the cul-de-sac proof of concept, we can fit a cul-de-sac turnaround in there. This connect through just made more sense from a lot disturbance point of view, but we could fit a cul-de-sac there if we had to. So that was that. The fire department, we had a DIT meeting. The fire department was present. Their only concern was that the driveway was of adequate width and construction that it could support a ladder truck getting up there. And we can build that. The driveway is proposed to be 19 feet wide, and basically there's more requirements than this, but the bituminous concrete driveway would have to have a 1 foot gravel base, which we can certainly construct and get a ladder truck up there. So that was really the only concern of the fire department when we met at the DIT meeting. The topo on the surrounding properties, that we can certainly add that. That's not an issue. And curbing, part of the reason we requested that waiver is there's no granite curbing present on Annette Lane now. But if that's something that's required, I mean, it is what it is. It's not an issue.
Thank you. Did you have any response to that?
No, well, yeah, I'm sorry, my follow-up question was, would having the cul-de-sac change the the way that you do the subdivision line, the lines on the subdivision?
Well, yeah, I guess it would, because it wouldn't be such a straight shot like that. We'd have the cul-de-sac
Would be
itself
part of
would
the-
be
yeah.
part of it.
Alright.
But we still conformed with, lot area and
All right.
things like that. Certainly conform with frontage and all that. But yeah, the lot lines would change. It wouldn't be so
Right,
rectangular,
yeah.
if you will.
And related to that, I guess I'm interested to hear what you discussed with the fire department. Thank you very much, because it wasn't a concern of theirs if you could get the fire little ladder truck up, but then how would you get it back down? Would it be reversed back down?
Yeah, just reverse back down. Yeah. I mean, they didn't bring up that concern of how to get the timber up. And they had, we have that existing fire hydrant that we would just relocate to the other side. They were okay with that location for the fire hydrant. But as far as getting in and out, they didn't say specifically, but I would say they would just back the truck down.
I'm kind of wondering about that myself. All right, other questions from the committee?
Just for my background, can you give us a little background on Annette Lane? Seems like there's no reason for it to have been constructed. Is there any curb cuts on it?
Yeah, across the street, I believe.
Is that on the- I don't see any on the plan.
Yeah, there's curb cuts on the south side
Okay.
of Annette Lane. And how about that one at the corner?
On the corner, there's a driveway.
Right, so those aren't shown on the plan then. And you said they don't have granite curbs or sidewalks?
There are sidewalks, but no granite
Sidewalks.
curbs.
And is it an accepted street?
Yes,
Public way.
50 feet in width.
So the town maintains it.
Currently, yes.
That might be a question too, where you're only showing 30 feet. For plowing, they might have some issues with. I imagine now they plow down to the end.
Mhm.
And now if you're only extending it 30 feet, then they're gonna be plowing in front of the driveway, so that may be something that the engineering needs to look at. Would there be any opportunity or advantage to put a walking pathway through to Applegate? The reason I ask that is, in my neighborhood, there's 4 cul-de-sacs all coming together.
Yeah.
And now the neighbors are starting to put signs up and say,
Yeah.
don't cut through my yard.
Yeah, no, we could certainly build it would have to be a slightly elevated
It'd be a
boardwalk
boardwalk,
because we're
yeah.
going across a wetland, but, it would provide a walking path, a little bit easier way to get between Applegate and Annette by foot. I think that would be a public benefit for sure. We'd be open to that.
That was my main question.
All right, continue on that. Is Applegate a public way?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned for the walking path, you'd have to have an elevated boardwalk, and I believe that was part of the proposal said 145 foot to create a frontage. You'd need a 145 footbridge. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
I don't know when a footbridge was ever considered frontage.
Well, it would footbridge in the terms that it would be for vehicles, but I guess that's just the term that we use. But it would be for vehicles to drive through it, right? But this is just our proof of concept plan.
I understand that, but I'm going with, at the beginning, you're saying that you'd have to build a footbridge to go over the wetlands to be, for this to actually be able to be a subdivision as permitted.
No, we'd have to build that footbridge to meet the subdivision requirement that we can build a right of way. So the layout itself is much wider, right? It's that very dark line at the top. So to prove that we could build a right of way to meet the subdivision requirement on our proof of concept, that was one option, was an elevated roadway going through. And it would just be on piers. It'd be like any pier that you see going out to a boat, or a bridge going over a wetland area. It'd be just like that.
Okay. It just seems strange that I've never seen a subdivision say, we can meet it if we build a bridge.
Well, it's a right of way. I mean, I don't.
Because then is the bridge even a right of way?
It's a roadway.
Basically, it's an elevated roadway.
Because can you get off the bridge?
You can get off of it on Applegate Lane.
Right, but can you get off of it anywhere else along that roadway?
There would be a little curb cut for the driveway. So the bridge would start actually kind of right at the end of that pavement extension. And the reason why we're doing a bridge is because we're traversing a wetland.
I'm sorry, could you show us on the map what you're talking about, please?
Absolutely. So this is the, all right, so this is our pavement extension right here, approximately 30 feet long.
Okay.
This, where these triangles are, this is the actual limit of the vegetated wetland. And off of that comes a 25-foot buffer zone and a 35-foot buffer zone. So where the footbridge would start would be starting at this 35-foot buffer zone. So we're not impact, we decrease the impact in the wetland area, and then it would come across and connect to the pavement here at Applegate Lane.
At the edge of my house. Yeah.
On the roadway.
Yeah.
Sure. But, we would prefer.
Excuse me, for folks who are participating, I want to be sure that we're not interrupting and we're letting the commission talk. So yeah, so let's hear the response. We'll get the questions and then there'll be plenty of time. We'll take all the time we need to get questions from everybody.
So we would connect to the public right of way, but that's for our proof of concept. We'd prefer not to do that. We'd just prefer to extend this pavement.
And now I am a little bit confused. You do keep saying footbridge, but you mean
What's called elevated roadway. Yeah, that's a bad term. Elevated roadway.
Okay, I'm in the trails world, so when you say footbridge.
Sure.
It's a bridge.
But you mean a bridge, like with footings kind of thing?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Now, if this wasn't wetland area, we would just come through with the roadway, on grade.
Yeah.
No issue, but.
Andrew, could you just point out on the plan where you designed the cul-de-sac in the event that?
Sure, yeah.
I might even have that plan. I mean, not that it. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. It kind of came up in this general area like this. It stayed out of the wetland area. And I think the house might have been set back a little bit further that way to accommodate the bulb. I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but that's generally this area where the cul-de-sac.
Right. I think I read this and this is a key point that needs to be said is that whether that bridge can be built or not through the wetland is that's not the right word, is irrelevant.
Is irrelevant to the decision.
To the decision of CPDC.
So I guess the only thing I would add to that is that bridge would meet the Reading subdivision requirements of a right of way.
Right.
So,
Yes.
yep.
Yes. But whether you could actually get it through Conservation Commission, DP, like that we can't think about that as part of our decision.
Yeah.
So
That's exactly right, and that's I will admit that I also am kind of I have a kind of a mental block on we're creating frontage with a way that we don't know if you can actually get the permission to build. So,
but
and that I think is just,
Sort of
it
irrelevant.
is what it is, and it is legally not relevant to the decision before us. Before this body, there are other bodies that would make a decision like that.
All right, so continuing on. So the question becomes, who's responsible for that tract of land that you're subdividing off?
This piece here, an outline extension. So it could either remain private, or if the town felt there was a public benefit to it, that it could be accepted by the town. So if it was private, it would be the owner of this lot. It's probably going to be the town.
And if it's private and it's the owner of the lot, how much maintenance is required? Will he be required to cover the 30 feet at the bottom?
Cover the meaning.
You're extending a netway by 30 feet.
Yeah.
Into the new private way.
Sure. Yep.
So who's responsible for maintaining that additional 30 feet?
The owner of this property.
In perpetuity, unless it was accepted.
And that does not include plowing? That would include plowing.
Would include plowing.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess it's not relevant to this question. I'm just questioning how the heck the plow driver comes up, stops, and walks out.
sort of not relevant, but
All right.
yeah.
The only other question I have is
Thing.
10 Annette Lane, the property across.
To the south here? Okay.
So does this allow them to now subdivide? Because now they've got potentially frontage along that new property.
I don't know their lot configuration, you know, with their,
It's another couple of acres.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send in that lane.
Sorry, sir, we're going to wait
Just
for
one second.
comment.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem. Thank you. Okay. All right. No, those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Chair, can I just address one thing? There was a question about test borings by, I think, Ms. Adrian. We would be absolutely willing to do the test borings, that 30-foot extension, to demonstrate that the soil can support a roadway.
That sounds,
All right, Tony's interested looking at your last question about subdividing. From what I can see, it looks like that would allow additional subdivision of, that of the lot, if that right of way is created. I also don't know that that's the reason we can say or not say that there's a reason for it. That's a bridge we would have to cross. My main questions, I think my main questions have been answered. It was about the topography, it was about plowing, and I was concerned about fire safety. All right, there are people here who want to speak to this as well. For folks who are on the online meeting on the Zoom, if you would like to speak to this topic, please raise your hand. Unbeknownst to Andrew, there was somebody making noise, so I took away everybody's ability to unmute. So raise your hand and then we'll ask you to unmute. And so maybe we'll start with comments in the room first while folks online raise their hand and let us know that they would like to speak. Yes, sir. And if you wouldn't mind, come on up, because it's when you stand up here that the folks at home can see you and hear you best. Yeah, come right up to the podium, I think.
I just want to, I live in Kenneth Lane and I'm just concerned about our house. And I don't know, as far as the built up extended roadway or whatever, how long it's going to be to go from one side to the other. I'm just guessing it might be 180 feet, something like that. How long will this extended, how long will that roadway be? Because when you go down there, you got wetlands down there, and my concern is you build something up, and it's right along the border of where I live. And right now, I look out there, and it's wetlands. I can't do much with it, but I do try to keep it looking nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like I'll be living in the bayou if you got a bridge there, some kind of built-up bridge. But that's not, that bothers me. I could see one thing, some way turning up in there, but extending that whole length there with a built-up bridge, you just like junk.
Yeah. And that's, thank you, sir, because that's also, somebody mentioned, maybe a footbridge could be, maybe like a path could be made through there. And I think your comments there help us to understand what the impact of something like a
I
building.
guess a path. I don't know, and when I own the site, I'm not too worried about frontage because it's practically it's all wetland anyways. But the big thing is, if they do something and they're turning up into there, that doesn't affect me. They're gonna have to build up that front quite a bit, because when you go to that thing, where the end of that road is, it drops off tremendously. So I'm already wondering how they do that. I worry about how, whatever they do there, how that's gonna affect the flow of water into my wetlands and ultimately into my basement.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, I can't, when they started even saying cul-de-sacs, I don't know where the stuff is gonna be. I mean, as you go down the road, I don't know how, I'm pretty much right off the road, okay? So as you go down the road, you can't have a cul-de-sac right there, they're all over my land. And also, it's not like this is a flat area. When you go there, this land drops off.
I see that, and that's another reason we want to have the topography for all of us.
So I worry about water, but I also worry about a built-up roadway going through there, making my land look junky. And also, if you got a built-up roadway look there and you get rain coming in, how it affects backing up into mine, also into his area too.
So, go ahead.
Oh, right. I guess I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, right? They need to prove that they can build a roadway across there. But as they said, they don't have any intention of building that roadway. They need to show that they can, so that they can prove that they have the rights to build a house up there. But as they've said, they only intend to build a 30-foot long extension of a net lane, and not a bridge that goes across.
Okay.
Okay.
If it's down to they have to do it that way or nothing else, and they get the permits, I don't like that. I don't, if they have to turn and go up that way, that's one thing. It doesn't affect us too much. Although I still think there'll be issues with the water and all that up in that area, because it drops off tremendously. But yes, the whole talking about going all the way across, I just have to say,
Yeah, and I think it's the Conservation Commission that would have to kind of, right? At what point does this go to the Conservation Commission to say, yes, they could build a road through there?
So
I'm sorry.
if CPDC were to, on a definitive application, they'd run pretty concurrently, but really what would be before conservation would be what's intended to be built and the impact from that. So they wouldn't even really be discussing this bridge concept.
Right, because it's not actually intended to be built.
And so in the Conservation Commission hearing, right? The roadway is going the picture I'm looking at is, a couple of feet from the edge of the 35-foot bordered vegetated wetland buffer. And so they're going to be very focused on where does a runoff go and making sure that it doesn't go into the wetland, and you're going to be concerned that it doesn't go to your house. So I imagine, right, I would be shocked if there isn't a big discussion about drainage and what is happening with that 30-foot extension of the roadway. That's in this particular hearing, that's unfortunately, it's not what our purview is right now. But we do know that it will be handled as part of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so I wanted to voice mine.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from within the room? Yes, sir, please come on. And when you come up, please state your name and your.
Oh, it's Bill Schneider.
Okay.
And I'm at 27 Applegate Lane, and I would be definitely impacted if that footbridge were created, although it does look as though it may not necessarily be go down that avenue. Again, just like Mr. Judge, I'm very concerned about water right now, let alone when there is even more construction going on and diversion of water as well. It's a primary concern of mine, and if one were to walk around there, one could see that the ground right now is very soggy. That's even on a dry day, not necessarily when there's a huge amount of snow or rain. It's a huge concern, and if I were to vote, I would say no.
Okay, and again.
I know.
Yeah. There are several boards that.
Well, obviously, there are many steps that need to go before ground is actually broken, but be that as it may, this is the first step right here.
Yeah, exactly, thank you. Anyone else from in the room? Okay, anybody on, oh, yes, sir, please come on up.
My name's Chris Housekeeping of 70 Martin Road, just in front there along the north side of Annette.
Okay.
And I would just like to agree with what they said. I'm concerned about this large runoff coming down. There's quite a drop off at the end of the street. It's not like they're just pushing out, they're paving out a little further. It drops down. I too would like to see the topographical lines in the map, especially if I were voting on this. It's a funny thing. We live at the top of a hill here. We live in a swamp.
Yeah.
So we do. It's just the way it is. And you get a little more water, a little change, and it can be a catastrophe. And so I'm concerned with not enough information here. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree, and that's what one reason that I always, especially in a situation like this, like to see the topography of the surrounding land, because of course water doesn't just stay right on the property. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Joe McDonough, and I'm 47 Deborah Drive. I'm actually like on the other side, the north side.
Oh, yeah.
And my general question is just on process. So the environmental impact assessment, what is if that gets waived, right? What's in that versus like conservation? Because I agree with what everybody's saying, like the topography, water, like all that stuff. I mean, it's a very challenging like area. So I'm just trying to figure out like if that's what's being missed.
So conservation covers a lot of it. Angie, would you like to speak to that?
Actually default to Andrew if we can.
Sure. Yes. So it would, like you said, it basically covers all of it. Conservation is gonna be, we're gonna have to file a full notice of intent for review with conservation and Mass DEP to build this, to build the house. So we would have to include things about stormwater runoff, you know, how we're gonna, any runoff that might be heading towards the wetlands is probably gonna require pre-treatment. We'll have to, you know, discuss groundwater levels, you know, things of that nature. So they're pretty much one and the same. So there might be some slight differences, but conservation is gonna cover the major sticking points: topography, runoff, all those things. And when, you know, if we do go to definitive for this, we're gonna have to submit a full drainage study and stormwater management detail. So it would include, you know, how exactly we're gonna measure, handle and mitigate any stormwater changes that might occur as a result of this. And you know, conservation isn't gonna allow us to be impacting other folks' properties, and I don't think engineering would either. So that'll all be addressed, you know, in these upcoming steps.
But if it has to be done anyways, like why would you ask for it to be waived? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, for this,
So for this particular process, so, you know, if it were a much larger property, for instance, environmental assessment could include what are the endangered species on there? What are some things that might be of concern if you have a much larger property? For water concern, for wetlands and water and stormwater, the information is the same, is similar, especially to what gets to the issues of concern. And it's a matter of whether or not they do an environmental assessment that could be way more detailed, I suppose, for this part of the process as opposed to when they're going to conservation. Did I answer that okay?
Yeah, I was gonna add on a site this small, right, when we're talking about subdivisions, this is a pretty small site. And we generally know, like, right, the issues here are all related to the wetlands, and folks on the Conservation Commission, that's what they do, that's what they know. Like, honestly, that's not my, like, if we got that report, we'd want to go to the Conservation Commission and
I'll add that I was on the Town Conservation Commission for a number of years, as well as, you know, a registered professional engineer who's done a lot of this type of work. So we're going to get a lot of cracks at the stormwater and wetland resources. But the environmental report is really, as Heather said, if you've got a big project and they're coming in and saying, we're going to put a, you know, street in here, a cul-de-sac here, you want to identify where the resources are that you may want to say, well, let's modify that preliminary layout so that we can protect more of this conservation resource area as opposed to that. So it's at this stage, it's really important on a bigger project, but with this, there's not really a lot of
I guess my only concern though is not just, to me, it's not just that lot, it's also the town land on the other side where there's a drainage easement, and that's there for a reason. I mean, that can fill up, and you know, believe me, like that's, you know, you gotta think of the holistic picture.
Right, and I assume that, I'm not that familiar with the neighborhood, but I'm assuming that wetland continues south for a
Yeah.
fair amount too, and I don't know whether there's any stream flow in there. It doesn't appear that there is, but those are the types of things that.
There's a fen there. In fact, the fen is on my property, which
Okay.
is the origin of the wetlands. And that is my primary concern too. Yeah, you know, in my business, if you have that many red flags, one tends to back off of it.
And again, this is the preliminary thing.
Of course it is, be that as it may. Be that as it may.
You know, is
But
the,
it's
is
a
the
concern
space
for those
there?
about to abut.
Yep.
As opposed to living here on Summer Avenue or something like that.
And I can see, you know, just on very loosely where some wetland areas might be in there. It's pretty clear. Okay, other comments from the room? Oh, yes, did you want to respond? And I see you back there as well.
I just wanted to respond. We certainly could understand people's concerns. We absolutely do not want to build a project that will in any way adversely impact anyone's property. I've been looking on my Google Earth, and I don't know if any of you have had the application, but if you're not going to do a site visit and you can flip onto Google Earth, you could see where this is located. And it's a very dense area, and this isn't the only cul-de-sac or cul-de-sac and dead end. Actually, just north of this is where Coburn Road is. There's another section of the roadway that also was not connected through as well. Interestingly enough, when you look at the Google Earth photograph, you can actually see how extensively vegetated that area is. And we will be leaving the vast majority of that vegetation alone because we have to, because it's associated with a wetland resource area. Won't be cutting anything in that area. We'll only be cutting a driveway in that'll be wide enough for a truck to get up in there if it were required. And I think what you'd ultimately find out from the fire chief is they're never going to drive a ladder truck in for a single family home. It's really the ambulance and the police vehicles that have to get in there. And you can always mitigate that by putting in some type of a cistern with a suppression system in a home. But that's really what it is, emergency vehicle access, not necessarily the largest fire truck.
Well, I will say, I would want to ask the fire department about where they drive. I've had a ladder truck at my house before. And that's, I think, a question for the fire department.
And as long as they can typically back out, they will more or less go along with it. But certainly, I defer to what you hear from your chief.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Others from the room? Yes.
Mary Jane, Judge, and I'm that Wayne. I want to know, how many feet do they have to be from a vernal pool? Because there are vernal pools in that area down. You know, there's wood frogs and there are peepers. Are they going to be enough away from that?
And that would also be a question for conservation. Yes, would you like to respond?
If there were a vernal pool on our property, we would have to be 100 feet away from the vernal pool. There are no certified vernal pools on our property or suspected vernal pools on our property. I don't know whether there are any on the judge's property, but there are none on this property.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, but how many feet do they have? Like if they're up there and the vernal pools are down here, they're going to be enough feetage.
100 feet away from
100
any
feet.
certified vernal pools.
So, and one of the other, on the site plan that they pointed out where the vegetated wetland is, and then they had a 25-foot line and a 35-foot line. The 25-foot line is no disturb, so they can't go in and clear any of the vegetation within 25 feet of the wetlands, and then they can't build anything within 35 feet. So, so they can't put in a shed or a deck or something like that. So you're going to have from those wetlands a 35-foot buffer that's basically going to be protected.
Okay. Anything else from this room? Do we have anybody online? If you're online and you would like to speak, would you please raise your hand? Use the raise hand feature under reactions, or
Wait, I saw Mr. Eddie.
or actually
raised his hand.
raise your hand. Mr. Buckley, I'm the one who did this. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Sorry, Andrew.
You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I live, Eddie Buckley, I live at 62 Martin Road, which is on the corner of Martin and Annette. I bought the house a couple of years ago. It was a dead end street. nice place to raise my daughter. And now I'm hearing that they want to build another road or extension. I don't know if it would have swayed my choice to live there anyway, but that's not my problem. My issue is, I heard them talking about the fire department saying that they wouldn't need to get a ladder up there. I'm a firefighter, and I'm not speaking about Reading, I don't know what their rules are, but I'm a firefighter. If your house is burning and someone needs to get out of the top of your house, you need a ladder truck. And if you put in the ladder truck first, that means the engine's behind it. Now they're going through the woods to fight the fire, which makes it a lot harder. So you're not just walking on concrete. Can't fit two trucks side by side, so they're going to be one in front of the other. So from a fire, in my opinion, I'm not the fire chief of Reading, believe me. But yeah, you would, if there's a fire in your house, you would want a ladder truck, believe me. If you want to get out of your house, you would want a ladder truck. So I wouldn't ever say you don't really need a ladder truck to get up there. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you for catching that.
Conservation questions.
Yeah.
I kind of caught that too. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just want to reiterate that we fully intend to construct the driveway in a way that a ladder truck could get up there if it had to. That was the discussion that we had at DRT. The construction of the driveway would be able to accommodate a ladder truck.
Right, but the ladder truck has no water. So the engine has to go behind the ladder truck. And now they have to truck through the woods to get to the house, to put the house up. The ladder truck is only pulling people out of the house. The engine has the water. The ladder truck does not.
Sure. And there's also a fire hydrant right at the end of the driveway that we're gonna relocate to the other side. So, you know, but any comments the fire department has, we'll certainly address.
Okay. Any other questions from online?
Not seeing.
Wow. Okay. So it strikes me that we could vote on the waivers, but it also strikes me that there are some things that we talked about, like a cul-de-sac, and where you might want to bring back an updated plan. What's the will of this group right here?
This is a preliminary subdivision.
Yeah.
They did have a plan that showed a cul-de-sac, in theory, could be built. There's not a plan to build one. I think we could vote on
the waivers,
since it's a preliminary, and the goal of voting on the waivers is to give the applicant a feel for how we would vote, we potentially could vote.
Or what to address.
Yeah. For when they do come back with a full plan.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
On the cul-de-sac versus straight through, you know, sort of configuration, it does impact the layout of the two lots, right? And I guess I'd actually like to sort of understand from town council what the difference in implication of that is. Because even, right, like, there's some rationale here, right? There's like the end of Deborah Drive, right? It obviously, the right-of-way is sort of the same situation. The right-of-way could have gone through, and I don't know if there's actually a cul-de-sac at the end. I don't know, but from a property wise, you can tell the end of the, well, it does look like they built a cul-de-sac. So
yeah, the lot is
yeah, I don't know. So I just want to understand that from town council of why one and not the other, and what that difference is, because I think that may have some other repercussions.
Do you want that before we vote on the waivers? Is it at a subsequent meeting?
I actually don't, from my perspective, it doesn't change. It doesn't change how I would vote on the waivers, because personally, the waivers are sort of irrelevant to that issue. It would change, I mean, it sort of changes my thought about whether we vote on the plan itself.
Yes. So
I
we
don't
can
want to
vote on the
delay
waiver,
things.
because we vote on the
I don't wanna
waivers. we're
delay
not
things,
voting
but
on
I'm
the-
really just, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
Okay, you've got a comment right back there. Come on up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on Denver Drive, it's pretty flat up there, I think. That's the road going up past on the other side. I think that's what it is. That's not the same condition that we have. We have a big gully. Denver Drive is, my understanding, if that's the one that's off Martin Road, it's not the same condition.
No, the difference there is, it does look like they built there's a paper street. The parcel configuration was laid out so that you could have a right of way through there. There was a cul-de-sac that was built at the end.
Cul-de-sac at the end of Deborah, but not at the end of Colbert.
Yeah, exactly. I live at the end of Deborah Drive. There is the cul-de-sac there, and they did do paper road and the storm drains, everything. And then that project stopped.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So like, I want to understand the difference there in terms of subdivision and subdivision approval before we approve this the way it is.
But we could vote on the waivers.
There is 54 Deborah Drive. It's got the pretty much exact same configuration as we have. And what they got was they got a variance for their frontage. They had about 52 feet of frontage. So it's a similar configuration, similar story as what we're dealing with at our site.
I think we should take the waivers one by one then, because we have some concerns over some of them. A long list of waivers.
A long list of waivers, and it's always a roll call vote. We're not going to vote on the subdivision, the approval of subdivision itself tonight. It might be beneficial to hold off on those votes.
I'm hearing agreement there.
Yeah. So.
And that's kind of where I don't want to hold it up at all, but we may as well, if we're going,
Yeah, so,
There's some things to come back
right,
to.
in the interest of time, I think our preference would be not to vote on it tonight. We still have that question.
Whatever your prerogative is.
And maybe you've heard what our discussion is, and maybe we can group them in a way so that we can have different, votes on groups of them or individual ones, so that we're
I
not
think
like
you've
going
even
through down here.
convinced us that we might withdraw a couple
Okay,
in the meantime.
all right,
Okay.
And we'd give you a revised one before the next.
okay.
okay, so a revised list of waivers, and your decision, but the ones that were brought up were test borings, topography, curbing. Another one.
Bituminous concrete.
Bituminous concrete. Okay. So I think we're going to continue this. To come back with any revisions and a revised list of waivers that you would like, and we can cover it all in the meeting.
Do you think we could get a memo from the fire chief?
Yep, so on my list, so far in revised waiver list, further fire department comment and memo, whether it's more concerns or an okay. And I do want to bring up again the concept of a potential, if in the right of way, if after waivers, if there's potential for a walking path from Applegate to a net, it's something staff have discussed. There's a potential improvement, especially if that were to be a public right of way. We'd want some, could see a public benefit of a trail there or connection between those two. So,
And I'll note, this is one where I would encourage the neighbors, the abutters, to think about whether or not that's something desirable or not. If you
Yes,
have an
please.
opinion on that, please,
When you say
right, let us know.
You're really talking about a road where a car could travel.
no, a
No, what
boardwalk.
Andrew was talking about was where, what we would be approving would be a preliminary subdivision plan that has the right of way, because that's what the subdivision is. One thing that we could encourage the applicant to do is to create a walking path through there. So not something for roads, but something to be able to walk through from one side to
So
the other.
for people, not for cars.
Yeah,
Great,
yes,
right.
right. And I imagine it would be a typical boardwalk.
That would be
That would-
like,
that's-
when he was saying a footbridge. That's what I was envisioning. Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna say that before we got the land, we did have, it was boards there, it was a right of way. They put up a fence so nobody could use it right away, but there was, you know, our child was like 4 years old, we moved, we always went through the other side, but that was all locked off when he moved in.
This is complete conjecture. There is a sewer easement there. And sometimes people who manage sewer easements don't want people on them, so I wonder if that's what it was in the past.
I understand that, people do what they wanna do, but I'm just saying that there was a walkway before.
Yeah, that's, okay, that's good to know.
And it wasn't a real long thing, it was just an area that was probably 6 feet long that had boards that the kids could walk up.
Oh, boards, okay, yeah.
Just regular boards, I mean, it was probably in the easement area, but there was an area where they could walk across boards. It wasn't like, 40 feet long or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, that's great.
Some areas that they planted.
Thank you. Okay, so is there a time to which we can continue this to?
So, I have 7:30 on your April 10th agenda.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna just move, so that we continue this to 7:30 on April 10th.
I'll second
So April 10th,
April 10th,
we'll
7:30.
receive another notification.
Yeah,
There is no re-notification on continued hearings. We
No
will,
re-notification.
no re-notification. We will update the project, the website, current applications to note the new meeting date, and then subsequently the meeting info, Zoom, hybrid. And I'm happy to answer any questions in the meantime as well.
so that will be at our next scheduled meeting at 7:30. Okay, I need to take a roll call vote on that. Pam,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Heather, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us.
Thank you for bearing with us for our technical delay.
Yes, thank you,
We
guys.
have it. Let's see, we have it under control. We keep it under control. All right, next up is also, we're opening a public hearing on another preliminary subdivision plan at 45 Beacon Street with Angelo Salamone. Said that correctly. And so I would love another volunteer if we have it up to read the hearing notice into the record.
I'd volunteer, but Tony did that
Tony! Are you ready
so
for this one
expertly.
too?
Notice is hereby given pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81S, and Reading Subdivision Regulations, Section 5.1. The Community Planning and Development Commission shall hold a public hearing on Monday, March 13th at 8 p.m. in the Select Board Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and through the remote and online measures below to consider an application for a two-lot preliminary subdivision submitted by Angelo Salamone for land located at 45 Beacon Street, Assessors Map 27, Lot 411 in Reading, Massachusetts. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to hearing.
I feel like I should applaud. Thank you. Alrighty, do we have somebody in the room or on the Zoom to present on this one? Are they in the waiting room?
Admittedly, I have not seen Angelo or his engineer join. As of yet.
Can you hear me?
Nope.
Yeah, hear somebody.
Yes, yes. Can you tell
Yeah,
us who you are?
This is Angelo. My
Okay.
engineer should be on, but I don't know. Told me would be on.
Okay, who are you looking
I
for?
don't know now.
I'm just wondering if we have another phone number on there. Angelo, you're the only phone number. Everyone else. What's the name of the other presenter?
Phil Christensen.
I don't see Phil online, Angela.
He is not here. What would you like to do?
I don't know. We could carry on a little bit if you like.
Or do we want to, that's a good Phil. Do we want to take the next one
Yeah,
and then come back?
Yeah, let's do that because we have we've got some business that, we were overdue for at 8:30. And Angelo, if you'd like to stay on, if we see Phil join on, we could come back to this. Would that be all right?
Okay, and I can log out and then call him and log back in.
Yes. And you are, and I see your phone number on there. You're the one that ends in 2265, right? So we'll let you back in.
Correct.
Yep, and I'm forwarding the agenda and info to Phil.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so moving ahead to the other business is we have a request for the 4-year. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Pam, is that you?
Yes, we have a request for continuance, do we not?
Yes, that's exactly it. A continued public hearing for the 40R plan review at 25 Haven Street, and we probably need to read that request into the record. Do we have that?
I have it in front of me.
You do?
I do not.
Okay.
Oh, here I have
Here,
it.
okay.
Yep, we received a letter from the applicant for the Downtown Smart Growth District application for 25 Haven Street that says, please accept this letter on behalf of 25 Haven Street LLC requesting to continue the public hearing on this application currently scheduled for March 13th to the commission's next available hearing date on April 10th. And they also extended the 120-day period under zoning.
Until May 16th.
Until May 16th.
Okay, so Andrew, when would you like to schedule this one?
I was thinking 9 PM on your April 10th.
Okay,
agenda.
I think that's fine. So I'll move that we reschedule this, we continue it to 9 PM on April 10th.
I'll second that.
Okay, and let's take a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
All right, John?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Heather, yes. Alrighty, we also.
I have a question on that. Is all the information online?
The most recent plans are online, yes. I can forward them your way. Trying
I
to
can go
think.
on the website and get them if that's. what-
Yeah, they have had 2 hearings, I believe. So you wouldn't actually be eligible for the Mullen rule. You can still comment and question if and when they present again, but you wouldn't be eligible to vote. If my memory is right, that they've had 2 hearings.
And they're organized online by project, right? So.
Yes, there's an ongoing projects tab.
Okay, do we have the people we need online, or should we go ahead to the site plan review for 431 Main Street?
Haven't seen Phil or Angela log back in, so I think we can go to the site if you feel.
Okay, a lot of new stuff. So the next item that up is a public hearing for a site plan review at 431 Main Street for Chase Bank. I think we probably have another hearing notice to read into the record.
Before I read this into the record, Madam Chairperson, I believe you received an acknowledgement of the 23B form for myself that I do have a relationship with the VP of Real Estate Development for Chase Bank.
Yes.
That relationship has no monetary value whatsoever. He's an old friend from high school. However, given that, if anybody feels uncomfortable with me being in for the meeting, I would certainly recuse myself.
No objection.
No objection.
I have no objection. Thank you, Tony.
All right.
Would you like to read the hearing notice?
Should. Notice is hereby given that under sections 4.3 and 4.6 of the Reading zoning bylaw, the Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 13th, 2023, at 8:30 PM in the Select Board Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and through the remote and online measures below to hear the site plan review application submitted by Chase Bank for the property located at 431 Main Street, Assessors Map 17, lots 63 and 65. The applicant is proposing to construct a new approximately 3,300 square foot building to use as a new financial office that includes surface parking and associated site improvements. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at the Town Hall by appointment and on town website on Thursday prior to the hearing.
Well done.
All right, thank you. And who do we have to present on this proposal?
So I'm here, I'm Joey Fonseca with Bowler, and I can introduce the team that's here as well for this application. Again, my name is Joey Fonseca, I'm with Bowler. With me here today is Randy Myron, also with Bowler for the civil engineers for this project. Also, when we're all via Zoom today, the team is via Zoom, but we also have from Corsair's group, our architects here, it's Jose Sanchez and Kevin Kelly, and then Maureen McHugh with the Bowman Companies, Bowman McMahon Companies, our traffic consultant, is also with us here today.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going to give a brief overview of these existing conditions, proposed conditions, and then I'll turn it over to Maureen for a brief traffic presentation, and then I will, present some of the architectural plans and the side package that we have as well that was submitted as part of this application. So, so we're here today just representing the applicant Chase Bank for a project at 431 Main Street. If I could, Andrew, is it possible to share my screen on this? I've got some exhibits that we can.
Funny business, but yes, you can now.
Okay, everyone can see. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Sure. So again, project site is located at 431 Main Street. I'm just going to flip to the next slide. In yellow represents the two parcels that make up this entire sort of project area as part of the overall project scope. You have they're both on map 17, lot 63 and 65. Lot 63 is zone business, which is what I'm highlighting here. It's a larger lot. It contains the existing gas station on it, along with parking and other vehicle storage in here as well. The second parcel, lot 65, is zone residential, and it's zone 15, single family 15 residential, and it's located along Washington Street, on this rectangular lot here located at the rear of the overall parcel. Again, these two make up our overall property, I'd say, for this presentation. The proposal is mostly within, or fits mostly within the existing gas station footprint. And again, that lot is zone business. It contains approximately 16,300 square feet, and the abutting parcel that's zone residential contains approximately 9,900 square feet. So a total of about 26,000 square feet total for the property. So as I mentioned, the existing use here is a gas station. I'm sure most of you are well aware of the site. Just sits at the corner here of Main Street in Washington. There's three pump stations here, along with a service base located at the building. And there are some vehicle storage on the side of the building, probably for maintenance as well, along with a few vehicles stored on. This is the residential portion of the two sites. So you can see there's a couple trucks here, and I know there's some plantings along the left boundary here, and then some gravel piles, et cetera, sort of located throughout, mostly closer to Washington Street. Just go forward the existing conditions. This is the existing survey that was submitted to you all with the plans, and again, it just kind of highlights the building location. In blue is that overall boundary. The building is located sort of centrally within 431 Main Street, and you've got some concrete areas where you've got your fueling stations as well as your underground subsurface storage tanks as well. And then again, this kind of highlights some of the containers that you saw in that last picture at the rear of the property. And really the only formal parking is along the right side as you enter the site. There's 5 parking spaces just up against the boundary line here. On for customer parking here, certainly for the service, as well as the gas station use as well. This property contains multiple curb cuts along Main Street. It might be light on your screen, but there are 2 curb cuts on Main Street, one close to the intersection, one on the far end of the property parcel boundary. There's a larger curb cut on Washington Street, again, just being able to access the gas station side, and then there's another curb cut towards this the rear residential parcel as well. All the utilities are serviced mostly from Washington Street under the existing condition. Stormwater generated on site, mostly just sheet flows off site. It's sort of a portion of it flows out towards Washington Street, and the majority of the stormwater flows towards Main Street, which is collected in the municipal drainage system, but it's untreated. It's just mostly just sheet flow runoff that exits off site. That's just kind of a brief overview of the existing conditions. Like I said, I'm sure most of you are aware of the site. There's limited vegetation on site. Certainly, the existing gas station site is about 100% paved. The residential parcel does have some grass at the rear. There's some larger trees located on the parcel. It's mostly gravel up towards Washington Street, but the majority of the gas station site is paved. So moving on to the site plan, so just a rendering to kind of it sort of highlights a lot of the proposed features here on the site. So again, under this condition, the 3,300 square foot gas station building would be raised. A new approximately 3,200 square foot Chase Bank would be located here. This is in this sort of light brown shading. Here is sort of noting the limits of the building. The front door accesses the parking field around the site. There's some ADA spaces close to the front door. We're trying to maintain both access points on Washington as well as on Main Street here. Certainly reducing the curb cuts by 1 on each side. So again, we'll be closing the curb cut close to the intersection and creating a right in, right out curb cut as a main entrance to the bank. And then another full movement, sort of right in, right out, driveway out onto Washington Street as well. So drive aisle along the perimeter of the site, and then there's a parking field of approximately 15 spaces to be constructed with for this use. So we're showing on this plan some sidewalks that will be constructed internally to get customers to the front door, as well as some ADA improvements as well from the ADA spaces to that front door as well. Stormwater here will be, greatly improved over the existing condition. We're reducing stormwater, but we're reducing pervious areas by about 3,500 square feet. And you can just see from this plan, the amount of vegetation that we're proposing here, as well as just kind of noting some of the green areas that are here, certainly along the perimeter, and then along the border between the bank and the corner here of Main and Washington, with the parking fields on the south and east side of the parcel, along with a planted island there in the middle of that parking field as well. So again, a big improvement over the basically 100% impervious surface that exists today. So that reduction in impervious also reduces the amount of stormwater generated from the site, but the stormwater that will be generated from this parking area, as well as the roof drains, will be collected via deep sump catch basins. So there'll be some water quality improvements there, and then conveyed to the existing stormwater system, municipal system within Main Street. Under the existing condition, there is a connection there today. There are a few catch basins at the rear of the building that don't seem to capture that much area, but there is a connection there to this catch basin here, and we're just proposing to sort of reuse that connection there with our stormwater. I'm just going to flip to our grading plan that kind of just highlights, the 3 catch basins that we're proposing throughout the parcel. I'll just highlight them here, 1, 2, 3, and with the piping connecting to various drain manholes, and then ultimately tying into, again, that existing connection there along Main Street. So again, a big water quality improvement, not only just in reduction in impervious area, but certainly in water quality as well. So reducing, stormwater rates and also increasing the stormwater quality there. Utilities will sort of remain as what exists there today, albeit just cutting and capping certain and extending other utilities to the building, but the majority of the utilities that service the existing building that will also service the Chase building, the majority of those come off of Washington. So the thought here is if we can reuse some of those connections, we should be able to, we'll do that to limit the cutting within Washington Street. Lighting will also be improved here under the existing condition. I know that there are some floodlights that are roof mounted on that existing building. So we're limiting the lighting around the site as being as minimal as we can with that. We've got 2 light poles that are highlighted here on the plan for, basically just parking lot lighting. There'll also be some building mounted lighting as well. And those are also indicated on the plan as well. So, minimal light spillage off-site, and we certainly have, a well-lit parking area. And these will be dark sky compliant as well for these fixtures. I'm just going to flip back to the landscape plan. So this again highlights a lot of the landscaping that we have here. The plan that was submitted with this application, does include about 26 deciduous and evergreen trees planted sort of throughout the parcel. There's about 149 shrubs and ornamental ground cover throughout the site. As you can kind of see here on this plan, the residential parcel that's at the rear of the site, the plan here for that is just kind of, it will also be cleaned up. A lot of those vehicles will be removed. Those gravel areas will be removed as well. Again, those are mostly located up closer towards Washington Street. The idea would be to just kind of clean this lot up and then, loam and seed it and, keep the vegetation that's there today. We're not proposing to clear any trees here within this parcel. It's more just sort of cleaning it up, here and removing some of those parked vehicles that are there. The majority of the work here is being done within, the existing business district, resident business district parcel here, which is, the former gas station use. So again, the resi portion at the rear here would really just be a treatment of, loam and seed and just sort of kind of beautify that lot and kind of match what's happening here in the corner. We did have a DRT meeting with staff here on the 7th. We did receive some comments during that, which we could certainly, I'm not sure if we want to address those today, or address them once we have formal comments on that, but we can certainly, run through those at the end of the presentation if needed. That being said, what I'd like to do is just sort of turn it over to our traffic consultant, Maureen, who is on here as well, to kind of just run through the traffic, and then I will bring it back to the architectural side and we can kind of go through some of the architecture as well here. So, Maureen, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Joey. As Joey mentioned, my name is Maureen McHugh. I'm a professional engineer with McMahon Associates, and we had prepared a traffic impact study back in January 2023 for the site. As part of our traffic impact study, we reviewed the existing traffic volume, site distances, crash data, estimated project trips from the proposed development, as well as operation at the study area intersections. Under the existing 2030 future no build conditions and 2030 future build conditions. We did follow the Mass DOT standard 7-year timeframe for the future analysis conditions. As Joey mentioned, the new site would demolish the existing building and site access would be provided via 2 driveways, a right in and right out, one on Washington Street and one on Main Street. We did review the site distances at those proposed driveways and all met or exceeded the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials required stopping site distances. We did see that a road safety audit had been performed at the existing traffic signal on Main Street at Washington Street as part of a Mass DOT project back in 2017. One of the findings from that RSA was to consider reconfiguration of site driveways in the vicinity of the traffic signal, meaning right in, right out, controlling left turn access, which this proposed site plan addresses. We followed the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual to estimate the new project trips. ITE is a national research organization that collects trip generation data from various land uses across the country, and they provide that data for planning purposes. We followed the land use code 911 for this site. It's walk-in bank without the drive-through. In our report, we did note that the present site, being the gas station, was actively in use. And from the traffic data collection during both the morning and afternoon peak hours, we did find that the existing site trips actually exceed the proposed site trips for the bank based on the data provided in ITE. For the purpose of our traffic impact study and analysis, we did not deduct those existing site trips, but wanted to point that out that based on the proposed development, it is actually a net reduction in trips to the site itself. We did adjust the traffic count volumes up by about 6% as well, since we collected our data in January to account for seasonal adjustments for lower traffic early in the winter season. Comparing the operation of the signal on Main Street, it's a very minimal increase in delay overall, less than 3 seconds of added delay per vehicle comparing the 2023 existing delay to the proposed 2030 build delay, so with the project in place. And the queues, the associated queues would increase by less than 1 vehicle on all approaches for that as well. So based on our analysis, there's no significant impact on the existing intersection operations as a result of the development. Back to Joey.
You're on mute, Joey.
It's like this is the first time I'm doing this. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to run through some that we have here, and again, am I still here? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Just as a Zoom quit unexpectedly.
No, but we hear you.
Okay, good. Is my screen still sharing as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll keep getting this.
There he goes.
Oh.
Oh.
Did we lose
No.
Joey now?
He's still on.
Nope, I'm back. I just reset. I don't know what just happened. I will. Sorry about that. All right, hoping my screen's being shared again. So what I'm going to do is just turn this over. I'm going to kind of flip through some of the architectural drawings here. And I know Kevin Kelly is with us today, and could certainly kind of walk through some of the architectural elements here on this. So let me just advance one slide. And again, sorry you didn't hear before, but thank you, Maureen, for that presentation. And I will turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Joey. This is Kevin Kelly from Core States Group. When it comes to the elevations, the main thing is that there's going to be, the main components here are going to be the entry tower on the south elevation, the conference jewel box, which is the anodized aluminum on the west and north elevations, as well as the back of house. The predominant exterior finish is going to be a dark gray Michi-Ha fiber cement panel. These have a texture very similar to wood, but far more durable. The back of house is going to be a white Coronado stone. The thing to note about this back of house is that it has a very low roof, so the mechanical equipment is going to be located on this roof, and the parapets around it are going to screen it from view. For the entry tower on the south elevation, that is predominantly going to be a thin brick, a light gray blend thin brick for the entry. And for the storefront, it's going to be a black anodized aluminum with black anodized canopies as well. And finally, just a clear anodized aluminum storefront for the conference room that is going to be on the intersection of Main and Washington Street. Essentially, all of the windows on the building are going to be in predominantly public rooms, so conference rooms, private consultation rooms, offices, and the vestibule. The only window on the back house side is going to be within the lounge, so it'll mainly be within very public rooms that the storefront is going to be looking into. Aside from that, in terms of bank equipment, there's going to be a through-wall bank ATM and a night depository that are going to be in the 24-hour transaction vestibule, as well as a freestanding ATM in the lobby within. Any questions for the exterior or interior layout of the building?
Yeah, I've got some questions relative to the interior. I see a location for keys, but I don't see the location for lock boxes. I'm assuming that's what the keys are for?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm also not seeing the vault.
The cash chest is located to the right of the equipment cash room. There's no vault for this one. So the cash chest, it's right next to the left of there.
And do you have on your plans a drive-through of any sort?
There's
Exterior?
no drive-through.
No drive-through, okay. Okay. And where are the manager's offices? I see the location for booths, but not for managers' offices. I'm assuming you have a vice president or something of that sort, and she'll need it, or he'll need an office.
Yes, they will take one of the PCS rooms for their office.
Can you point that out for me?
I'm highlighting one here with my, actually, just. Here's one office. And a second.
Okay, got it. All right, just wanted to make sure you had it. Good, excellent.
Other questions from the commission?
My only question, I see here that you have on the floor plan a future ATM location. What would, I guess, what would the implications of that be on the outside? I assume, right, from that layout, that's an outdoor.
So, yeah, sorry, not to this was an early concept of just showing the floor plan, so there is no plan for a drive-through ATM use here. This was just an early sort of rendering of the floor plan. So we don't have anything to share that has a drive-through ATM component for this. This location, this branch would have just received just a branch location without a drive-through.
Okay, that makes sense then.
I have a question or comment on the north elevation, which is Washington Street. Right now, that's not a great view of the existing gas station, but it's more open, and now we're building a building right next to Washington Street. So we're creating kind of a big wall there. And I think 128 Tire is going to have another building. So it seems like Washington Street at this intersection's getting kind of closed in. Is there any way that could be made more of an urban storefront type elevation?
When you say urban storefront, can you elaborate?
Well, like when you walk up Main Street, you've got, the fronts of buildings. Whereas this is just going to be, wall and windows. So there's not really anything that's visually pleasing to that, in my opinion.
that would certainly be something we can bring back to Jason and discuss. The other thing we should also note as well is that we're currently still developing signage brand book as well. So once we have a better idea of signage in regards to that front, we will let you know. As for the actual experience, let's see.
Yeah, I'll jump in there while you're thinking some. Right, what we don't want to do is, right, this is the back of the building.
Right.
But it's the front of the it's the front of the building to the street. So we want to, I think the point here is to make sure that it doesn't look like the building is faced backwards, and right now from this rendering,
it doesn't look like it's built on a corner. When you're heading south on Main Street, that's the view you're going to see.
And it may be, I don't know, I would say something like even just some awnings over the front of those, over the top of those two window sections. And then, like you said, if there's some signage on, or something on the column, I'm going to call it a column, the stone to the left in that picture, so that it looks like it's intentional, that it's not just a flat facade.
So for this building, first off, just wanted to note that all of the storefronts do have sunshades that are going to be projecting out to protect them. But in regards to your comment for the face of the north elevation, we can definitely include architectural elements that can make it stand out, even as storefronts, or even include another tower on that side, just so that it's just to provide more of a presence on the north elevation.
Yeah, that would help.
Sorry, we're muting everybody.
Got him. We caught him.
Okay, who are the ones that we bring back on? And then we need to take some people out.
I ain't bringing any of these people back on.
No, our
Oh,
presenters.
sorry. Yeah.
Joey,
Maureen, Kevin.
Joey,
And Pam.
Pam. And Maureen. Joey, can you hear us? Oh, I see what you're
Sorry, we're on mute now. Now we're good. They can hear us.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right.
Okay, and hold on, Pam, I want to bring back also.
I'm still.
Is Pam unmuted now?
No, Pam's here. She's good.
Okay, good.
Right.
Anybody else who wants to speak, you can't unmute yourself, so raise your hand.
I will say, right, the sort of the color palette, the materials, to me, it feels very Chase Bank, right? Like I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's sort of what I would expect. So from my perspective, no issue with the, the kit you have working with, but I appreciate the comment on the back.
It's a downtown building.
Yeah.
And it's on a corner, main corner in town.
I think the other side of the building, right, that faces Main Street with all the green, with the green that's going to be in front of there, the tree, the windows, I think that will play nicely.
Great.
So.
Yeah, I think, you know, as you're coming north on Main Street, you're seeing the front of the building and some of that landscaping on the Main Street side. But, you know, driving up Washington Street or coming down Main Street, you're just seeing a box.
I agree with that, by the way. That was a good comment. Because the front is really, it is both sides. It's a very busy, it's a full intersection. I have a question. And it is about managing, you know, and it's the question to the whole group. I don't necessarily have a suggestion, but managing the pedestrian crossing across the drives. So I'm happy that there is a right in, right out. Something that we're trying to do in town is to, at least I'm trying to do in town, is to ensure that the areas right near our downtown are friendly and walkable. And I know as a pedestrian, when I come to something like that, I guess I'm wondering if you can describe to me how pedestrians will be accommodated and welcomed across there. What your recommendations are.
So from a site plan perspective on our end, we do have two sidewalk connections from Washington Street and as well as Main Street to the main door here for the bank. You know, we know that I believe there's an ADA ramp here for this crosswalk here. The thought here is, you know, we have access on both sides of Washington and Main to keep this pedestrian friendly as well for both streets. But, you know, aside from that, I'm not sure if that directly answers your question there.
No, that doesn't really answer my question. So that's good for pedestrian access to Chase Bank from the intersection. I'm thinking about pedestrian access further down Washington Street and further down Main Street. So for kids who, dare I say, might be going down to McDonald's or
There's a lot of
kids, dare I say, who are riding their bikes going down, believe it or not, down toward Washington Street and toward, you know, down toward Walkersburg Drive. How do we manage that? Is there going to be a bump in the middle? How do we manage kind of keeping those right turns? And are you going to put a crosswalk in, something that says, yes, pedestrians are welcome here, and cars, please look out for pedestrians?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly work with the traffic engineer as well as adding crosswalks along here. I will say, and sorry if I didn't answer your question correctly the first time, apologize for that, but I will say these two islands on both Washington and Main Street, we're showing these as raised islands. They were going to be more of a mountable curb. From the DRT meeting, one of the comments that came out of that was, let's just strike those, which we're on board with as well. It just eases, you know, the turning movements in and out of the driveways. So if we're putting these islands as striped, we can certainly include a crosswalk across this, across, you know, Main Street, and if it's Washington as well, we can incorporate that. We can incorporate that in a driving package for both intersections.
So this is where you're going to get conflicting.
I know,
conflicting comments here, and I'll be happy to talk with whoever said that at CRT. That I really advise against paint, just paint, right? Because these will clearly. I mean, I'm ecstatic actually to see right in, right out. That's exactly the right thing here. I'm all on board. I think, you know, you did a great job on the traffic report, like all good in that instance. I like how you even, right, I mean, we talked about this in some, right across the street here, right? You're sort of with the angle of the driveway, sort of forcing the right. I don't want to detract from that by just having it only be paint, having it be worn off, and having this be in essence an even wider opening than it needs to be. That being said, I was sort of trying to think through this, is that you don't want a non-mountable, like a vertical granite curb thing here because of it's in the way of the pedestrian.
Yeah.
But I think that you do at least want some, whether it's like a raised textured concrete, mountable curb with a little textured concrete on top, so that when you're walking, it's not that big of a deal. But it becomes obvious if you drive over it that you weren't supposed to do that.
And yeah, this is what we're both expressing is I kind of want both of them.
Yes.
I want it to be like something that you don't want to drive your car over to take a left turn. We've talked about this with other projects. And I want there to be a way that pedestrians cross. Mark just mentioned, I thought I heard ADA accessibility and that it's safe for pedestrians. I mean, I suppose you don't want to move the crosswalk further into the parking lot because then cars might not see people crossing. But I guess I'll noodle on this some more and think about some things.
That's a detail I think that we're gonna zero in on.
I'm aiming to keep those in there as raised something.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I'm happy with the raise something, and also I really want to think about how we just encourage and welcome pedestrian crossing as well.
And just to maybe add to the conversation as we think going forward, the only concern I could find from right only is those traveling westbound down Washington Street now have to left onto Main, somehow U-turn and get into. That's the only one concern I could find with the existing traffic pattern, but it should be insurmountable.
And you can't leave here going southbound on Main Street.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Because you would come out this way. That doesn't do it for you. Right. Or you'd come up this way.
Yeah, and you can't.
So I think customers that are coming to Chase Bank will know, and they'll figure out the route into there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, they'll have to.
Yeah. Right. Just like
because left turns
market
there would be a
basket, right?
nightmare.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the only place in Reading where you think you can make a turn and you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but you can if your car can. I should admit so freely that I could be a test case for these things. Okay.
Yeah, I'm guilty as well.
Yeah,
we can certainly look at options here to make it a more pedestrian-friendly walkway across it. There are, methods of how we can drop the driveway down to meet the existing roadway and keep the sidewalk level across it. It does slow cars down, but it's a little bit difficult with this right-in, right-out configuration. So we'll take a look at it, another look at it, and see what we can do as far as getting these. It seems like the focus is more on the Main Street crossing versus the Washington side, but we'll certainly take a look at both.
Yeah, and I actually truly think, and so as you, thank you, I would say, bring your most creative and knowledgeable thoughts to this. And I personally would welcome it and truly think about I would say 50% of the time that I'm driving through there, especially in after school hours or on weekends, there are kids down there going in both directions. So think about how kids would react to that and how drivers react to kids down there crossing, because they do on their bikes. That's what we're trying to accommodate, both on Washington and on Main.
Okay.
Yep. All right, other comments?
So I heard someone say that they're going to sort of still develop the sign package. So I'm not eager to go over those if you're going to pull something else together. I will say, because I saw the freestanding sign sort of replacing the sign that was there already. I would strongly encourage instead of that freestanding sign that is very auto-oriented, that maybe, right, because this is right at the edge of the downtown, maybe it's, a monument sign, ground-mounted sign, maybe in that area where there's, where it's landscaped, to keep it to keep this all more at a
Human scale.
instead of a, auto-focused.
This is business B, correct?
It is.
So it's not allowed a freestanding sign.
So the freestanding sign exists today, and so
Except
we're trying to play if
the freestanding sign is permitted as a service station.
right. I know. So there is some trickiness to this freestanding sign that we did go over in the DRT, and there is, but I agree that auto-oriented is not the preferred.
And the other thing was they're proposing 3 signs on the building when they're allowed 2.
2. Yep, correct.
Right.
Yeah, right. I'll say of the entire package, when I looked at this, I was like, oh, this looks great. This looks great. And I came to that and choked on it. So, take that with what you may, right? Yeah.
We'll certainly take these comments back to the team and make adjustments.
All right.
Any other comments from this group?
I had a question for Andrew. At the DRT, were there any engineering?
There were. So we did review many of the items discussed already. The one item not discussed yet is that we have requested that there be on-site recharge, infiltration, and treatment prior to stormwater discharge into the municipal system. We make that ask of every development. So to the maximum extent possible, that's been the ask.
Yes. Yeah. Sort of saw that.
And has there been a 21E done on the site?
So we're still waiting on the environmental reports on this. That's part of in how we respond to that drainage question that came up in the DRT is going to hang on what we find from those the phase 1, phase 2 reports that we'll receive. So we'll review them and we'll certainly address the drainage comments as we can here on the site.
I've got a question about the traffic study. Was that conducted assuming a multi-unit development across the street further up north?
We did, we had contacted the planning department and town engineer in our traffic study. We did identify, I think it was 3 ongoing developments that are, not under construction, not built yet, and those site-specific trips were included in our traffic study. In addition to those, we also grew traffic volumes for any unknown developments that have not yet been submitted. So if there's a traffic study available, we will look at those traffic studies, and if they have trips that are going through our study area intersections, we will incorporate that. For anything that is not yet known, we use a general growth factor to also try and account for unforeseen developments at the time that we're preparing our study. So there were 3 developments, I believe, identified. 1 on Chute Street, and I believe 2 others on Main Street.
Okay. And this one might get a little strange. I believe a couple of other gas station conversions in town, the gas company or the oil company was responsible for future remediation should additional, I know it passes the inspection and the borings and the E23s or whatever, but the oil companies were specifically responsible for remediation should anything pop up later in time. This is an independent station, I believe. Is that something that you would be handing off to the independent station or to an insurance company or something? Or is that something you would be responsible for?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to ask the team on that, and we'll respond to that question. But I'll get some more information on that. It is like you said, it is a private station, so it does get handled differently. I'll certainly get back to you on that.
Thank you. Gulf Mobile was responsible for Salem 5.
Yeah. I would just, it doesn't really impact the way that you did the traffic report. If anything, it would decrease it. But I guess I was just thinking about the trip generation for walk-in banks. And I have to imagine that trip generation, year over year is decreasing every year. And just curious, I know some of those ITE rates can get pretty old, and more curious, and I would not think that you'd have this off the top of your head, but just that's one of those areas where it's likely that ITE isn't keeping up. And that was the only comment or thing I was thinking about as I was reading through the detail of the traffic report, that it's probably even less traffic generated nowadays than, I'm guessing it's probably, an older number, because they don't tend to update them all that often.
Yeah, I think particularly for the ones that have the drive-throughs and the queuing, since there's usually queuing requirements for the ATM drive-throughs, that's something where, the online banking is very big now, and some of the studies from ITE are a little bit older. I think they are still collecting a lot of data, but yes, I would say that it's a conservative estimate based on using ITE.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission?
While we're on the subject of the traffic study, this is the most complete and incisive traffic study I have seen to date. I've been on the board, so thank you very much.
Put that in the minutes.
It's really good.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more comments from the commission, we can see if there are comments from the room, or if you are on Zoom. I muted everybody again, so please raise your virtual hand using the reaction button, and we'll bring you on if you behave. Yes, and if you would, please come up, stand at the podium so people at home can see you, and share your name when you.
My name is Fadi Melki. I live at 90 North Gate Road. Been in running since 1997. I saw all the changes that happened in town. It's growing. That's good. Great. But I don't think we need more banks in town. We have 7, 8. And then you just said that, that's my bank right here.
Yeah.
I'm old, the new generation, that's all they need is this. They can put deposit their money, they can do everything. You don't need more banks, but that's fine. That's nothing against banks. Nothing against them. The other thing is that the town is growing, right? We need, gas stations, some few of them is closed, few garages is closed. The population is growing. People need places to fix their cars, get their gas, get services done. I think they need that more than doing their banking needs, because their banking needs, I don't think you need to go to the bank and you just go by the phone. You know what I mean? That's beside. Looking at the map over there, that building is too close to the corner, which is true. According, you commented and they answered that, that's great, but I think it's kind of infringing a little bit. Second, there's a creek behind that building. It's about, according to reservations committee, and you cannot build within 150 feet from a creek. So I think you might want to run that by them too, just to make sure there's nothing going on.
There's a creek behind the building?
Yes, not behind the building, but with a good distance, but I don't know how far is it. That creek goes all the way down by Market Basket, all the way down.
Oh, way down there, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
it's
not
there.
this,
It's
yeah,
right
not too
behind.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that's more along Elliott Street.
Runs behind it. I'm saying, is it 150 feet away or not? I didn't measure it. I already got something to look at.
All right, thank you. We'll take that into consideration. And on the use of the property, if Chase Bank disagrees, they're the ones who get to say what they want to, how they want to use the property. We get to say how it's all laid out.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's, again, what CPD, our purview isn't necessarily what the property owner wants to propose for the use of the building. We get a lot of say in how the site is laid out and how it works for matters of public interest to the town.
Oh, absolutely. Just I'm not telling anybody how to do their jobs. Just, I noticed that. It's just my.
Yeah.
All right. Duly noted. Thank you. And we do see where the creek is. It's over there by, the southern side.
Is that an intermittent?
It's,
Probably is.
It probably
I
is.
think after the last summer, everything's intermittent.
Sorry, one more thing. When we went to get a permit, and then that issue was brought up a while ago about a creek close to the 950 feet, so.
Yeah.
At some point. It was raised, so I'm not sure, maybe rules has changed since I'm here.
No, it's a good point to keep in
I
mind.
assume, Andrew, that the DRT conservation.
Conservation wasn't there, we noticed a 100-foot buffer in the residential lot, so, a better grade, or I guess more detail on grading and what's happening in that lot to conservation will be important for the applicant. But outside of that, there weren't any noted stream restrictions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I see nobody on the.
I'm not seeing. No?
Somebody.
Bruce Johnson?
Bruce Johnson, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I'm just trying to unmute here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Bruce Johnson, 166 Washington Street. My question is about the residential lot. How's that going to be maintained? What is the access to that property? And is there any plan for that to be developed by Chase or to be sold off at any point?
I think there was a brief comment about that in the presentation. And would one of the presenters like to respond to that?
Sure. So the use right now, obviously, there's just vehicles being stored on it. What the plan here for this parcel, for this residential lot, is the curb cut. There's a curb cut off of Washington Street. That curb cut would remain. We're not touching anything within Washington Street in front of the parcel. It was more of this cleanup on the site. There's a gravel area here with some stored trucks. The idea here was just to kind of clean it up, loam and seed where there's gravel today, and it would just be, sort of maintain the existing addition at the rear half of the property, and then, just plant loam and seed grass on the front half closer to Washington Street. We don't have a plan from, our client here. We've asked the question if there is, anything that we could share, and unfortunately, we don't have anything to share for that. So I think the plan right now, the direction that we've had is just to maintain that as just sort of a grass parcel today. And to answer the question on the conservation, Chuck did reach out to us, and we've been communicating since. The 100-foot buffer does just kind of bump just a rear portion. It kind of extends this property boundary here, where even though our limit of work was at the rear here, we're really not doing any work here. So I'm still waiting a response back from Chuck on that, but I think the majority of our work is going to be outside of the buffer zone. Or he agreed with the sketch that we had prepared that showed the buffer zone. But I think our intent here would just to be stay out of it and just maintain the front half here and just kind of sort of cleaning that site up.
And if I can, to follow up on that, is that a residentially zoned parcel?
15.
It is.
Oh, okay. So there are two parcels and one of them is residential.
Right.
Correct.
That zoning line is almost right down the property line, so it's
Right there.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so this rear rectangle is all residential. I think it's single district 15.
And so I guess my question is on that, to follow up, because I was sort of thinking about that, and thank you for bringing it up, is why is that even part of the application? I mean, the only thing I saw on there was some landscaping that seemed to be over on the other residential parcel, but other than that, I didn't see anything. Am I missing something?
No, it's just part of the overall parcel that was purchased by, or that was of interest to our client.
I
So
gotcha.
both parcels were part of it. We're just only, focusing the development on the business side, the business district fee versus the residential.
And, I'll throw in there that, thank you for that. I would say that, if it is seeded and loamed and seeded, maintaining it would be really important. So it doesn't start looking like an abandoned vacant lot. You could do more creative things with it too, but that's. minimally ensuring, ensuring that it's well kept is important. Other comments from online? Please just raise your hand, raise your virtual hand, or take yourself off video and raise your real hand.
Elias has their hand raised.
Oh, where did it go? Let's do this carefully.
Yeah, hi. My concerns with the overall placement of the building, I think it's too close to the intersection, and it's gonna we have a new building coming in at 128, I heard, and it's just gonna congest the whole area. So I think that placement's a little bit off.
Okay, you feel like it'll be a little bit
Right now, when you look at the intersection, it's very open, and with two new buildings there, it's gonna be very congested, and all you're gonna see is buildings on the intersection. And they just built that new building, the apartment building, right down the street, right next to 128 Tire. So that's kind of concerning to me because it's gonna be really congested in that area.
Okay, point well taken, thank you.
I mean, 459 Main Street. They already-
Right across the street, yeah, it's
right
not built yet.
They're proposing something. to put it
Yeah.
up.
Okay, thank you, Elias. I would pronounce your name correctly.
To lower their hand.
Anyone else online? Okay, well, I think we gave some feedback, asked for a few more things, and did you also say you were going to bring the sign package as part of this application, so that's something else we would look into? We look forward to?
Correct, yeah, we'll get back with the project team and see when we can have a final, I'll have them look at the building signage as well as the monument sign, see when we can, get that sign package to the board.
Okay, so the things we talked about were having the sign package, seeing what we can do about maintaining the right in, right out, and a welcoming, safe pedestrian access. That large wall on Washington Street, there's, well,
Yep.
if there's something to be, the large facade, if there's something that can be done to make that be more welcoming for the streetscape. And all of this is also, I think, in the context that the building is close to the street. And so this is where that pedestrian, even driver, just kind of human scale interface is important. There was something else about the environmental as well.
We can check on that stream.
Okay.
Other environmental, the cleanup of oil.
Yes, the oil company responsibility or private company responsibility. Does that cover it, everyone?
Covers my list. Yep.
Okay, so should we find a time to continue this hearing?
I would have 8 PM on your April 10th agenda if the applicant feels they can meet all the requests by then, prior to such.
Okay, applicant, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's acceptable. Kevin, I'm not sure on your end as far as the sign package goes. Do you think we could take it offline as well, but do you think by 4:10 we'd be able to get an updated sign package for this? I'm not sure if you can unmute.
Oh, who?
Kevin Kelly.
Hello. Yes, April 10th should work on Court State's end.
Okay, thank you. So I will move that we continue the public hearing for 431 Main Street to 8 PM at our next meeting on April 10th.
Second.
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Heather, yes. Okay, we'll see you April 10th. Thank you.
Great, thank you all so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Alrighty, it's 10:14, and do we need to go back to the preliminary subdivision application for 45 Beacon Street. This is where Angelo, is Angelo here? And he was waiting for his counsel, right?
Angelo, are you still with us?
Angelo is here, but now we need to
Yeah.
get him to unmute.
Yep.
There we go.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Phil was on. He said he was
Phil Johnson?
hung up on Phil Christensen.
Phil, sorry.
He said he was on when I spoke last. However, he got disconnected, so I told him to call back in. Do you see him?
Is
Anybody
he
else?
on a
There
phone
were
also?
two-
Gonna ask that number to unmute.
I'm sorry?
Yes, hold on. Are you able to unmute the phone number there?
I had asked them to.
We're asking him to unmute, but he might be on his phone. Phil, it looks like you're on, if you're on the phone, what you might need to do, if I remember correctly, is hit *6 to unmute on your
I
end.
believe that's
We're trying to unmute you on our end, but we can't hear you, so you might need to hit *6 if you're calling in on the phone. And that's basically everything I've learned in the last 3 years. Bless you.
Thank you.
And Phil, if you cannot, hopefully he can hear us. If you can't unmute, we're watching the waiting room. If you want to hang up and call back in, we'll bring you right in. Oh, something I can do. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
We opened this. didn't we?
What's
No,
that?
we did not because Phil was not here.
Right, we have not opened this one up yet. And I know you've been waiting a long time, so I don't want to delay on this. Angelo, do you have any other way to get in touch with Phil?
I can call, but we did communicate, and I don't know what's going on. You see his number, and he's on with the problem, with the technical problem is
I see a phone number, and I'm assuming it's him.
What's the last 4 digits? Maybe Angelo could confirm them.
0766.
No, that's not Phil.
Okay, then I don't see him. And we have nobody in the waiting room.
And I did re-forward him the agenda and Zoom info if it helps.
And I'm sorry, I keep forgetting his last name.
His number is his last four are 4550.
Is it Christensen?
Yes.
You don't see that number, 978-944-4550?
No, we
do
don't.
not.
Okay.
Angelo, why don't you hang up, call Phil, we'll do a couple of other things and we'll get back to you in 5 minutes.
Especially now that I know his phone number. If I see you both come in, we'll just interrupt what we're doing because what we're doing next, we have no more hearings next. It's just other business that we do need to discuss.
Okay.
And but we can, when we see you both come in, we can bring you right in. What's that?
There's a lot of people waiting.
I know, there are a lot of people here who are waiting to hear what you have to say as well.
Yep, I realize that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll do that.
okay, and we're gonna keep an eye on the waiting room, let you guys both in, okay?
Yep.
Alrighty, thank you.
Well, thanks.
Okay, so what we're going to do, because I know you all are waiting for this as well, is that we're gonna go on with our next topic, but I'm comfortable interrupting ourselves if we can get back to
Yeah.
this one.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
open this hearing.
So
Right.
there is an item I'd like to ask if we can take out of order that's actually not on your agenda, and we can take it under the clause that the agenda does not necessarily include all matters which might be taken up, because this can be done under other business. And I do see Steve Dodge on the line. So came across my desk as a hard copy while I was out sick, very rare today, was a request for a release of surety and reduction of surety, as well as a certificate of completion for the Coakley Way subdivision. So really what this means is that they're asking that the bond be entirely released because the project has reached completion. We've confirmed with the engineering department, we've confirmed with the planning department that all needs of the subdivision have been met, including as-built and engineering details. And the bond held separately with conservation will remain with Chuck. So the ask would be that the committee vote to endorse both the Form M reduction of surety and the Form O certificate of completion. So it's our first one. I'm on almost any subdivision that we've seen. So
The first subdivision that's been finished?
In my time and in Julie's time before me, we had never seen a certificate of completion. So everybody typically gets close and has a few minor details, and they can sometimes leave them hanging. So this has reached completion, and we have set.
Do it.
Wow, okay, we did something, do we need to sign?
From engineering?
I do have an email.
Okay, because that's what I used to do. I would send a letter to the planning board with a copy of the forms and
Say,
say that we
documents.
inspected it and on such and such a date and everything is in compliance.
Okay, it seems like a good practice, just to have everything on record.
Yeah, that is generally my ask. So engineering did confirm Coakley Way's bond is set at $0. All items on the list have been completed, and this subdivision may be issued a certificate of completion from the engineering standpoint.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion? I saw Tony writing while I was trying to write, and you probably wrote in a more complete way than I did.
No, it definitely did not, but let's try this. Motion to accept a Form M reduction of surety to $0 and a Form O certificate of completion for Coakley Way.
Second.
Okay, we got it right already. Oh, and here comes Angelo again. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Heather, yes.
Great. I'll pass this around in the meantime, if I can grab, I guess, your 4 signatures. That's really all we need. We need a simple majority. These lines here.
Okay. Angela, we have you back in. I don't have Phil Christensen yet, but I'm keeping an eye on the waiting room.
Both of them? 2 copies? Oh, it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
Is that Andrew's phone?
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have Angela, we don't have Phil yet. So I think the only thing we can do is keep the lines open and hop in when Phil arrives. Unfortunately, do you want to go to the next item, Andrew, which is an update on Oakland Road? And I'm sorry, everybody, we just,
Yeah, it's up to you guys, or if we want to discuss with Angelo a continuance.
Oh.
Getting late, I mean,
Yeah.
or if he wants to present the application himself, I don't know if he's able to do that, but I guess up to board discretion.
I suggest we do that we give them till 10:30, which is 4 more minutes, and then sort of either take it up or so long,
okay,
right? 10:30 cutoff.
yes.
Seems reasonable.
Oh, yeah, that way you're.
There's a 4 or 5.
Oh, wait, here we go. Angelo and Phil, I think we have you and you ought to be able to unmute yourselves.
Hello, this is Phil Christensen.
Hi, Phil. We welcome, and Angela, we have you. If you are ready, I think what we will do is officially open the public hearing for the preliminary subdivision application at 45 Beacon Street. Are you ready to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Tony, do you have the?
Can I do it again?
You can do it again, please.
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81S, and Reading Subdivision Regulations, Sections 5.1, the Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 13th at 8 p.m. in the Select Board Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and through the remote and online measures below to consider the application for 2-lot preliminary subdivision submitted by Angelo Salamone for land located 45 Beacon Street, Assessor's Map 27, Lot 411 in Reading, Massachusetts. A copy of the application and company plans are available to the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing.
And if I can just add one thing, a quick correction or note on that notice, and it's okay because it's the preliminary application, is this is actually what should be a 3-lot subdivision. It's a net of 2 potential buildable lots.
Okay.
So we'll be sure that that's corrected on if in any definitive application.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So Phil and Angelo, are one of you ready to present an overview of what this application is about?
Yes.
Great, go for it, thank you.
Phil, do you want to start? Well, why don't you get in the background, Angelo, then I can talk about the plan.
So first of all, can any of you explain what your knowledge is of the history of it? I know Andrew, I brought him up to speed a little bit, and was he able to share it with you? And maybe we could, get down to the details, more quickly instead of me giving you a big spiel. This is approved. I think Andrew has an image of 2012.
Well, I can tell you, I don't want to take any more time than we need to, but what we have is in our packet is a background memo, or we did have a background memo of some sorts from.
Yeah.
Town council.
You want to know a abbreviated quick summary without getting into too many details, because really what I'd like this application to focus on is the subdivision application itself.
Yes.
The site was previously approved in the early 2000s, I believe, as a 40B development under a comprehensive permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals. 10-unit development, noted concerns at the time, but got an approval nonetheless. Subsequently, upon filing and permitting needs, town staff at the time, whoever was here, had felt that that comprehensive permit had lapsed. The applicant and owner felt that it did not, appealed that decision. It went to the Housing Appeals Committee, who gave them an extended timeline to begin work. Subsequently, a year extension again was approved from that lack of a better term extension. Another year extension was approved by the zoning board for the applicant to begin permitting and site work. Some site work had begun, but town staff in the mid 2010s to late 2010s felt that it wasn't enough to qualify that the permit continued. So we had felt again that it expired. The applicant and owner has since appealed that, stop work order, and it's now ongoing through litigation with both the Housing Appeals Committee and, I forget the other branch that is reviewing it, but it's currently sitting in that litigation. So out of those discussions have come this concept for the subdivision that could be an alternative that the owner might find feasible and desirable in lieu of the 40B appeal that's still ongoing. So I hope that summarized it well, Angelo, but again, I'd like to kind of focus this as to the subdivision application itself without much of the 40B involvement in history.
Right, thank you. That's what's before this body today, and that we just opened the hearing on, is 100% on this subdivision application.
Right, correct.
So with that, would you like to give us an overview? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, Andrew, that was a really good summary to bring everybody up to speed, even though we don't want to get into the history. I understand that. But I think it's important that that's why we're here. And we're here because it was a welcomed alternative, if you will, by the two, I want to say, I'm pretty sure it's two previous town managers. Otherwise, work would have continued. That said, this is what we feel would be better fit for the neighborhood, and as well as the town manager did. And that's pretty much it. And there also, in the litigation, there's a word in there that you may have seen, a settlement, if that has any influence on this proposal. So I believe it is important there.
Can you explain the meaning of settlement?
So what I'm understanding is that if I may, and I don't want to dismiss your question, Mark, we can get into that, but what we want is, regardless, my personal opinion is, regardless of the status of the court case, we have before us a subdivision plan. And for this body, we should focus on the subdivision plan, not on what the Zoning Board of Appeals was involved in with the other case. So
Well, I don't know the whole history and the litigation and things, but if we're making decisions that may affect a settlement, then we got to have town council's advice on that.
Yeah, right. I think we're not.
And we're
Right,
not.
that's
We're
the
not.
one.
Yes, that's separate.
yes,
We have a memo
yes,
from
the
town council
council's-
on this, on basically giving us background, but what we do, I don't think is not part of a settlement agreement.
Unless we're told so.
Unless we're told so. So Angela, we're keeping this separate, right? There's this case that's going on. And, I'm glad and interested to hear that this is seen as an alternative to that proposal. What's before us is this proposal, nothing to do with the other proposal.
We should base all comments on the merits of this.
Yes.
Right, so all comments, all discussion, we're gonna focus on this proposal, period, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I clearly understood. I'm glad to hear that you did, you acknowledged the memo from town council that basically my point, and so that we know how we got here, even though we are solely focused on its subdivision. I clearly understand the process and respect that. Therefore, I think that's enough. and Phil can, take over from here and explain everything that he has, proposed.
Okay, as was mentioned, initially, there was a little confusion between 2 and 3 lots. There's an existing house which would be part of this, and then development of 2 new lots, 2 new building lots. And this work takes place on Beacon Street. And because of the conditions, the original layout of the roadway, and also because of the steepness of the property, and also to try to manage stormwater more easily, we're looking at some waivers that we need. And one of the reasons we're before the board is before Angela spends a lot of engineering money on developing a plan, we want to have, if the board's willing to grant waivers, we want to know what those waivers are, and it will help with the plan development. For instance, and I believe you have this waiver request for the plans that was submitted with the application. And one of them is the width of the roadway. Presently, Beacon Street is 40 feet wide. That's the way it was laid out. And your subdivision rules require a 60-foot roadway layout. We're asking that it be waived so that we can maintain the 40 feet that's there, which serves the people in the area adequately now. And then additionally, it's extremely steep, and we cannot reasonably meet the roadway grading requirements. So we ask for relief in terms of the roadway grade. You have a requirement of, you have to have a maximum of 2% grade coming into a street, and then also you have to come in at a negative slope. And they just can't really make that work on this property. So we want a waiver on that. With regard to the cross section of the street, you require a 30-foot wide road with sidewalks and granite curbing. We're requesting that the roadway be reduced to 20 feet. It's only to serve the existing house that's there plus the 2 new ones. And we think that would be an adequate width. We could go a little bit wider than that if necessary, but I think 30 feet just is not needed for this. And remember, as you increase impervious surfaces, you increase stormwater runoff, that becomes more of a problem. Also, your subdivision rules require dead-end streets that cul-de-sacs, minimum of 45-foot turning radius. We're proposing to put in a turnaround area. I do know that there's a bit of a conflict with your own departments. The subdivision rules call for an island within the cul-de-sac. I think, I forget if it was DPW or the fire department prefers a fully paved cul-de-sac. So I need some clarity on that. But again, with the grades back there, it makes it extremely expensive to build a cul-de-sac on that road. From what we show is a layout with a turnaround. If you put in the cul-de-sac, there's another minimum 10-foot grade change that has to be accomplished somehow. And then, in addition, we're requesting that the granite curbs and the sidewalks be waived. That's in terms of the engineering aspect. So I don't know if you'd like to discuss those now or have me go on with a couple more requests.
Why don't we discuss those ones first?
Okay. Can we start with the roadway width, the layout width of 60 versus 40 feet?
I'm opening up the site plan overall also. I feel like we should probably discuss the site plan and then get to the waivers.
Well,
Yeah.
except that the waivers impact the site plan.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I've been doing this too long. I recall all discussions being that we require the right of way to remain at 60 feet, I don't think I'm not sure. I don't recall, I'll put it that way. I don't recall us ever waiving that. What we do waive is the pavement width. And
Well, it's the present roadway already laid out at 40 feet.
yeah, well, there was a lot of things that were done. There are a lot of things that were done in the past. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to continue that in the future. I'm just saying what we've done, you know, and we can have a conversation, you know, especially for new members here, right? The other thing, right, we've always required the right of way to be the full 60, but the pavement could be reduced, and I think pavement reduced to 24 feet is as low as we have ever gone. So
There's one thing, piece of information, if you expand the right of way, then that would be towards the existing house, and the existing house would not comply with zoning front yard setbacks.
So
that's the only place we have to expand the right of way. So we'd have a 40-foot right of way expanded for a short distance to 60, and then that would go into a cul-de-sac.
So my impression is that this is exactly what we need to consider. I mean, it's like there's what I'm hearing John say is there's the right of way that the town doesn't stray from. There's the pavement width that is different, and if there's not the space for the right of way and the house, then that's exactly what we should be considering.
Right. So right, the rationale that we have used in other places, right? Forget about exactly what's on this piece of paper.
Okay.
Is that for a parcel to be subdivided, it needs to have certain space and sort of layout ability, so that you can prove that, because we've never said, so that you can prove that you have the ability to meet all the guidelines, right? Guidelines are 60 feet, you know, wide, and the cul-de-sac. That's different than, okay, now let's talk about now you've proven that you can do what you're authorized to have a subdivision of this size. Okay, now let's talk about what would you actually want to build, right? We don't need, we're in a different place. We don't need 60 feet of paving. We know that, right, as a board.
Right.
So that's why going down to 24, right, we've never, but I think that we've always maintained that just sort of the entry point of a subdivision is matching what is required in the subdivision regulations, which is 60 in the, you know, the cul-de-sac size, or and please correct me if I've forgotten some cases. It would not shock me, right? It would not shock me if we agreed to a narrower right of way in a few cases where that right of way had already been established.
So that's what I was going to, where right of way exists, extending that right of way at its pre-existing width is typical and has been done in the past.
Where it exists, but not where we're creating a new one.
Right, but the cul-de-sac at a 60-foot right of way, 60-foot width would be maintained.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of, but so.
Okay.
So I'm just setting, right, because we don't do these all the time. I'm sorry. So I'm just setting the history on where we've gone with these.
Yes, which everybody please weigh in. It makes sense to me because at this stage, the concept is, you know, can you fit the subdivision with what the town requires? Right? And then, okay, what do we all mutually want?
Right.
But I can be on board with a certain threshold of subdividing where the requirements are met personally.
Okay, thank you. That was good.
I can
with regard to the, I need to say with the pavement width you're accepting, and I know I have done subdivisions in Reading with a 24-foot wide pavement width. And you said that's the minimum width you'd accept?
Not for the right of way width, but for the
Pavement width, yeah.
So like on the, so like on the preliminary subdivision plan, on the proof plan, right, is what we call it, or something like that?
Yeah.
We would want to see that the things actually fit.
So I guess for me, on a plan standpoint, everything's jammed in one on this plan. There's no separate proof plan
Right.
versus concept
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's a bit difficult to read.
But so this proof plan shows a 40-foot wide right of way plus the 60-foot cul-de-sac, which if we agree with the 40-foot wide right of way, because that's what's there before, this board has done that in the past where that 40-foot has been established. It shows the 60-foot, like that sort of, to me, that, right, because that's essentially the criteria, right? And then the frontage that goes along with that, which obviously from this plan, I think they would meet frontage. So from that standpoint, as long as we go with we are in agreement on the 40-foot extension of the right of way, then this way we would typically have a proof plan would work.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's late, but it's making
Yeah.
sense.
Right. Different, right. And then we could, if we agree with that, right, that would mean that we agree with the waiver for the 40-foot right of way.
Right.
That's one waiver.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the paving width, you said that you previously approved, where you've waived it to 24 feet,
Yes.
and that's the minimum?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest issues here is to try to fit a paved cul-de-sac in that area where we have a turnaround area. And I know there is some confusion. I thought there was some conflicts within your own department as to how they want the cul-de-sac. If you put a cul-de-sac in, I think the rules read that there's an island in the middle. But I think one of your departments prefers fully paved area.
Yeah, we have, I've been on this board 15 years and we never have ever approved one with the island. That has been on paper, but we haven't revised the subdivision rules to take that out. So it's sort of unanimous that no one wants the island in the middle.
Yeah, I would say there's no disagreement. The cul-de-sac would.
So you would.
Yeah.
You would have to waive the rules to put a paved cul-de-sac in.
Yes.
Okay, but from our point of view, where we have that drive, if you go up this road to where the turnaround is, there's a wall shown, and then the existing grade drops off another 10 feet down towards the end of the cul-de-sac. Pave that whole thing and try to keep a reasonable grade on it is just extremely difficult, which is why we proposed the setup we have on this plan. Do you have any cases where you've approved a turnaround other than a cul-de-sac? Other than a paved circle?
So, at minimum, we'd be looking and asking at a 45-foot radius cul-de-sac or half bulb or some sort of similar design. Perhaps not the full 60-foot paved cul-de-sac, but 45-foot at a minimum.
I think that's what your rules call for, is 45.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. So it would be another waiver request to a 45-foot.
And I think but the fire department wants a cul-de-sac, not a.
Correct. So, if you weren't going to do the cul-de-sac, you have to find a way to satisfy any other fire department needs. And I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
So
And I'm not sure this one totally does it. Would probably be, do we get a
Yeah.
brief from the fire department on, you know, it's like.
There was a letter from the.
Oh, yeah, there was in
yeah,
there, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, like, if the fire department's not happy, I'm not going with that. The only one that I can recall, and I think it's a completely different situation, right? Wasn't there some, it's not it's not at all a subdivision, but I remember working through some turnaround issues for, what's the assisted living sort of facility up there off of Main Street, right?
Oh.
Where Eric's landscaping used to be.
Yeah, that place.
I don't recall the discussion on a turnaround there. It might
There was something about maybe it was just access around the building, maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like similarly on Brook too, we had a discussion on.
About that was about access around the building. That's what it is. Yeah, not a turnaround. You're right.
So what we do have the letter from the fire department, and you may have the same information, but you know, the Captain Nelson from the fire department has affirmed the 24-foot roadway leading in, and also it seems like we just don't need to beat around this bush that he opposed the T-style turnaround and requested a cul-de-sac instead, and actually requested that a 60-foot radius cul-de-sac be there, although we just discussed a 45-foot one. So I feel like we could talk about the merits of this interesting turnaround intersection, but if the fire department is so clearly opposed to that, I don't see myself voting for it.
Just one thing, do you think the fire department's in there in terms of a 60-foot radius? That's usually the property radius, not the pavement radius on any cul-de-sacs in any towns I've worked in.
Yeah, is it a 45-foot paved?
I believe it is.
That's what your
your
regulation's 45-foot outside.
Yeah, and I think that's right, because the 60-foot is to be able to accommodate sidewalks and trees, but a paved cul-de-sac of 45 feet.
Okay.
And that's a discussion we can have. But
yes.
Another question for you. This might be a little bit odd, but if we had the cul-de-sac and it was not concentric with the circle, that is, you have the center point of the 60-foot diameter circle. Ordinarily, that's the center point of the 45-foot pavement circle. But if we were to shift that circle down towards Beacon Street, it would lessen the grade problems on the northern end of the circle. So you'd still have a 45-foot diameter paved area, but it wouldn't be concentric with the 60-foot circle. I don't know if you can envision that. But
I understand that. So, right, typically, as I said, the 60-foot circle is typically to accommodate sidewalks and, street, tree lines. Yeah, within that, right, I don't know if there's really a need for a sidewalk on a two-street subdivision.
We typically do not require it.
Right.
Yes, yeah. And so, right, to have it not in the center, I can't see that's a problem.
I would consider that, but you look at the configuration there and it just doesn't work for anything. You've got snow plow, turning around, public safety, that little T turnaround doesn't work at all. But if you had to slide it down a little bit, I don't see that as a problem if you wasn't in the center. And it looks like, and I was looking at a 8.5 by 11 instead of a big plan, but that's not a retaining wall on the north side. That's a drainage.
No, that's the retaining wall.
It is retaining wall.
That's supposed to be.
And what's the drop off?
Just 1 second. If you look in the back, you'll see there's a curve in that wall in the back, right where that first curve is. It's existing 146. And when you get down to lowest point in at the outside radius of the cul-de-sac, it's 132. So there's a 14-foot drop from that wall to the far end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other problem is when you get up towards where the cul-de-sac starts, you're at about elevation 153.
Yeah.
So you're dropping almost, 20 feet across the cul-de-sac, which is only 120 feet wide. So this is a dramatic slope. It's very difficult to deal with.
So I think you just heard us say that we would be probably unlikely to approve the waiver for the cul-de-sac.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Could I add something to this discussion?
Yes, yes.
So when I had a talk with the fire department, he confirmed everything that we're discussing. However, this lot, if you are looking at the plan, has a right-of-way out to Main Street. My current driveway, I come down Beacon to go around the side of the house, and I can continue right out to Main Street. So the biggest concern is emergency access. Well, this lot has more than enough access. I understand the preference, but for two houses, and I would maintain that, which I do maintain. I use and maintain and plow it. I think the neighbors may be against that, most likely, especially if it was paved. And, but if it were a good gravel driveway, maintained and plowed privately, there is more than adequate access. It's actually better than a cul-de-sac because they can just drive right through.
I'm not sure I'm following you. Right.
Not showing as paved. It's not shown as paved, but it's shown as a right-of-way out to Main Street, which is existing and in use.
Okay, I think
So
I
a
understand.
throughway is better than a cul-de-sac.
Well, I think I understand what you're trying to say. What we have in our packet is a letter from the fire department saying they very definitively oppose anything other than a cul-de-sac. So I guess I would ask, rather than asking us to arbitrate what the fire department would consider safe, is I think that message needs to come directly from the fire department, that if they think that this access, as you're describing it, is safe enough, I would want that from the fire department. I don't think we can speak for them.
No, I'm not trying to, I apologize. I didn't hear back from him, so I have to assume, because I didn't hear back from him, that you are correct, that they may not want to consider that. I'm just throwing it out there that there is a throughway, if it has any value.
Well, we would also need to see proof that you have a right-of-way on that throughway.
Well, I understand that too. However, it does exist, and if it did not, if it was not.
Yeah, it's 16 feet wide, it's not.
So, because I don't own the fee, I own a portion of the fee. I don't own the entire length of the fee.
But you would have to have a right to travel upon the other section of it.
Correct. Yes. And like I said, I maintain it and plow it.
Yeah, I had an uncle who maintained and plowed a certain section of property. It was never his.
We all have
I'm
these things.
sorry.
So we can raise that issue with the fire department. So your bottom line is, look, if the fire department says they want something, that's what you'll approve. And if they like different approach that Angelo can come up with, you would consider approving that. But it's got to be that the fire department accepts it as being a state means of, a safe access for them to fight a fire.
Well,
So
I'd say
follow up with that.
I'd say yes to that, but if you're introducing a different way of ingress and egress that's besides for emergency access, I think that introduces some other points of discussion. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just don't know enough about what that is, but it sort of changes the flavor of what we're looking at. So I don't want to say like, oh yeah, if you can convince the fire department that works, that's great. That creates that you get over one hurdle. I don't know what other impacts that causes.
Right, so we need so
Yeah.
2 parts. Yes, the fire department needs to agree that the proposed way of accessing the property and turning around vehicles works for them. If it's something other than what you've conveyed here, what the fire department has said we ought to consider, if there are impact, we need to be able to consider, the permanency of maintenance, all of those things and the impact. So whatever that other thing is, we would need to look at that whole other thing, and it's so late. In a complete way.
That's helpful, thank you. In terms of sidewalks and curbing, you had mentioned before you didn't have sidewalks on 2-lot subdivisions.
Well, this is a 3-lot subdivision, but I think and we should probably stay consistent with that language, but to access 2 houses, I personally think in a configuration, something like what you're talking about here, we probably don't need. Probably don't need sidewalks.
What I would say is we would not require a sidewalk, but we require the layout to include room for a sidewalk.
Understood, yeah.
I mean, there's no sidewalk on Beacon Street.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're walking down to the road. So it's not a big deal, but eventually, hopefully in this town, we're gonna have sidewalks in every street in town.
Or paths. Places to walk.
Footbridges.
Footbridges.
In my neighborhood, we have like in front of this house, there's a sidewalk, and then you go 3 houses and there's no sidewalk, and then it starts again.
Yeah, that's my street too.
So help me out on the granite curb. I think we've usually insisted on granite curbing, although there may be some places where if it's not part of the drainage, if it's not integrated into drainage, then we might, waiver on that.
Does Reading ever allow sloped granite?
No. So, right, if you're using the curb, if you're using the curb to direct drainage towards, your drainage structures, it should be vertical granite, because we're presuming that if it's not, then 10 years from now, there's a good chance it won't be there.
Right.
Yep. Good. Okay. I think in terms of the engineering issues on the plan, we've covered those.
Yeah, I had on the slope issues, and again, I'm just looking at a little 8.5 by 11. It would be really nice to have some profiles showing what the proposed profiles are before we start deciding that we're going to give a waiver on slopes.
It's not clear to me.
Well, we would have those in an actual preliminary plan. We've been trying to get to talk to the board, and we couldn't talk to the board about any of this unless we filed a preliminary plan. We only had a sketch plan just so we could get in to talk to you.
Yeah.
After the discussion tonight, we'd be able to finalize and present you with a more reasonable plan, so you have something that you can actually look at and vote on.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's helpful to know what your intentions are.
Yeah, that's what we really tried to do, but there isn't any procedure for us to just get in and talk to you about it.
Yeah.
So we have to go this route. Now, we obviously have to do the stormwater plans for engineering, and that's all fine, and the reports and stuff. Just want some consideration on the filing fees. With the cost Angelo has faced so far with all of this, is there any chance of waiving the fees on the subdivision?
I'll throw out my opinion, and I just glanced over at Andrew because I'm looking at him for some guidance on this. I actually noticed that your request for the fees was basically, made reference to the settlement, and I'm uncomfortable with this board getting involved with the settlement that we aren't getting legal counsel on. So I would be actually disinclined to waive the fees if it's seen in any way as related to the other case. You're nodding.
Okay.
Okay, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's not to be punitive or anything like that. It would just we need to separate those two things.
I can understand that. That's good. Angelo, anything you want to add?
I can add something, but I don't know that it's any relevance, but I think it's the obvious, is that the reduction in numbers makes it clearly, as the fire department acknowledged, a lot less of a safety factor. Who versus state. If that has any value, I don't know.
Again, that's a question for the fire department. I kind of, my instinct is that one is enough for the fire department to need to consider the safety to it.
So can we just step back a little bit? Like I was just reading the zoning data, like the whole idea here that's being proposed, three unit subdivision. Am I correct here? Right. Everything, all of the parcels, right? 15,000 square foot. The right 100 foot of lot frontage, side yard setbacks, all of that, like clearly fits the zoning. I'm going to say like the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah. And the design comply with zoning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing else. There's
nothing
different.
Yes. So the
engineering is the toughest part.
Yeah. So the waivers are really mostly about the street layout, and the sort of the engineering design.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think you've addressed those for us tonight, so we can go back and at least do some work with it and see what we can come up with for a more complete plan to present to you before we do a definitive.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board then? I feel like we should,
No.
there are people here. We should see what others have to say.
No.
So I'll open it up to. Yep.
One quick point. I would assume it's obvious, but I don't want to assume it is. Beacon Street is a private way, and the neighborhood likes to keep it that way. There's been talk to improve the way. This would be an improvement for the neighborhood, snow storage, what have you. However, they do like to keep it. They do want to keep the improvements to a private way as they are.
Yep, we just need a note on the plan if that's your intent.
Did you hear Andrew did you hear Andrew say that we just need a note on the plan if that's the intention?
I'm sorry?
Did you hear Andrew just?
We would need a note on the plan indicating such if that's your intention.
The
Just
no,
way to
I'm
remain
just
private.
making it making a point that it's a private way if we're not recognizing that it's a private way.
Oh, the Beacon Street itself
private.
now is private,
Right,
yes,
okay,
yes,
we got it.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
understood. Before
Okay.
Private way, and
right,
they don't want to improve the rest of Beacon Street.
public, not about the other.
Yes. Okay, as
No,
I,
it's not, oh, I know that.
Yeah,
all right.
Making a point that.
yeah, no, that is helpful.
So that is helpful for us
Yes.
all to remember. It's helpful for me to remember. I
Yeah.
don't think I had that in my mind.
So
Yes.
just for clarification, Beacon Street, where there are currently houses, is not a public way?
Correct.
No. All of Beacon Street is a private way.
We have these places.
Yeah,
Right.
we do.
From Auburn to.
Oh, the towns have. They just.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to open it up to public comment, and as I do, I'll just remind everybody and invite everyone to join us in separating the discussion of this subdivision proposal from all of the other matters related to the previous 40B proposal. That's not being deliberated on here today, and I really want to keep them separate. So comments on this preliminary subdivision proposal is what we're ready to do. We have people here. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand, come on up, introduce yourself. If you are online, please use the, Mark Delaney has his hand up, follow Mark Delaney and raise your hand just like he has and we'll call on you. Okay, and please introduce yourself.
Mary Joyce, at 890 Main Street on the right of way.
Okay.
If you could put up that map, I just have a question.
He's working on it.
And people at home will not be able to see you unless you're there, I'll just let you know, okay?
Then I'll step back. But I have a question, why this doesn't go right here to this property line? And I don't know if that's something that should be
Okay.
now or later?
Oh, is it, can I?
Without, because I couldn't see where you were pointed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But my guess is it's going to be irrelevant because they're going to change that design,
Okay.
right? But it does look like so what she pointed at was the end of the retaining wall on where I think you can see where Andrew's, yeah, which matches up, at least on my plan, with a topographic line. And so what they did was probably the top of that wall is at that topography, right?
Yeah, so that's at grade. and
It's
then
at the
grade-
same level.
And the
though.
grade
That's what-
goes down.
No, ours is at the same level as theirs at that point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I just want, the reason why I'm asking is because if you go down Beacon Street and it's all paved, all that runoff is gonna come into our property.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking about the stone wall.
Yeah.
And
those are all things
yes.
that would have to be considered with any plan, is where is all that water going to go
Yes.
and how is it going to be managed?
Okay, and he does have the use of the right of way, but he doesn't own it. So the fact that he said he could pave it, not gonna happen.
That's kind of that more
That's- yeah.
complete picture that we would need to understand, yeah.
Okay. And you said nothing to do with 40B.
Correct. I know.
It has nothing to do with the 40B in itself. It's a previous.
Yes, that,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
previous 40B.
No, previous to that.
Okay. Even,
Yeah, there's no need, right, we're not going to go back. We're just looking at this.
But the board only allowed one house.
So this is in reference to a 1995 variance decision for 45 Beacon that allowed 45 Beacon to be developed without meeting frontage requirements. That was a variance approval.
Oh.
One of the conditions was on that approval that the lot maintain just one single family dwelling.
oh, that's important to know.
What that condition did not do, which is more typical, I guess, as it relates to this case, is it did not restrict the ability to further subdivide the lot. It restricted the single family access from the, or one single family property on the lot of a principal dwelling. That's typical for a lot. It did not, at least from my readings and understandings and conversations, did not prohibit future subdivision of the lot.
Does that make sense to you?
And now, just to also add to, now lot 3 would meet frontage requirements where that variance was granted because it did not. Now those so.
But he came in and wanted a 3-building subdivision. And it was denied, and he was allowed to do 1. I have to.
Okay, so that history I'm not too akin to.
So.
Okay, I can do that. I can.
Yeah,
You-
I'll take it. I'll read it.
If you have written documentation and history, that would be valuable to share with Andrew. Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the room? All right, we have Mark Delaney, it has your hand up, and I think you can unmute yourself. I'll help you out. Mark, are you able to unmute? We see you, but you can't mute. We can't hear you.
There you go. Hey.
Okay.
I'm gonna shut off my camera.
Okay.
Good evening, thank you. This is well past my bedtime.
Me too.
I'm just gonna raise one issue. There are a lot of issues, you know, I think this project presents. I'm all for people being able to develop their property, long as they do that within the rules, right? And that's your job. The commission does a great job at that, so I'm gonna leave that to you. But the existing house that's part of this 3-parcel subdivision, in my opinion, I think it's operating, it's a rental, and I think it's more than a single family. And the reason I think that is, you know, it's not unusual for 6 or 7 cars to be parked there. And my point to that is, if the 2 new houses, if they're to get approved, the 2 new lots, are they gonna be single families that are converted into what I think the existing house is? May have a basement apartment. And the reason I'm concerned about that is we've got a lot of children in this neighborhood. When the weather gets good, they're outside playing. So, you know, that would be a significant, if you live in, you know, you live in this, on these streets, you know, potential increase in traffic. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're paying attention to those type of details. Because, you know, I walk around the block with my 4-year-old grandson, and, you know, the less traffic, the better. So I just want to be cognizant that if this thing does move forward and gets approved, we're talking single-family homes. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. So it's listed on the plan that there's an existing single-family home. Angelo or Phil, could you confirm with us that that's a single-family home? I just want to make sure that the plan's accurate.
Yes, I can. Everything in the house conforms to the building code. It's been inspected by the building inspector on 2 occasions, far apart from each other. And you can speak to Glenn. Glenn knows the history. He was there. Well, he's been there a long time, longer than me. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. So Mark,
So the short answer is yes, it will be single-family homes.
okay, and thank you for raising that. It's a good, we'll keep this in mind.
You're welcome.
Anybody else online would like to comment? We're going.
Can just add that Jamie did chat me to agree with the assessment that Mark provided. Jamie's iPhone, whoever that.
Okay, Jamie's iPhone, we got that. We got your note. Carolyn Whiting. If you can unmute, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Carolyn Whiting, 17 Chestnut Road. And my concern is about the potential runoff going downhill towards the other houses. You know, I don't know, I don't remember the names of the street, but down the Oakland Road side. And so I don't know what's being done to mitigate that, but that would be my concern. I see that Susan Forum is on. I think I would be concerned about her property getting water from runoff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, the stormwater is something that all must be considered. Thank you.
If I could just jump in real quick, the stormwater runoff now, there is no drainage on Beacon Street. It all runs over my property, and it is literally an ice skating rink, or a big block of ice at the bottom near the church. So stormwater management that was approved and will be reconfigured and maybe redesigned by Phil is going to be a significant improvement for everybody.
Okay, and that'll be part of what's reviewed. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, well, it seems like we're not quite ready to vote on these things yet. Angelo and Phil, would you like to continue this?
Yeah.
And I get that we need to ask, it seems like our next meeting is getting awfully full.
Same three, April 10th at 8:30
I think, right, the first question is, would you be in a position to come back in April?
Or would you like to do it?
Or would you like to do it in May?
Yeah.
I would prefer May.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you for asking. Let me just make sure I get the right date for that. Looking at May 15th. Admittedly, you can probably do 7:30 p.m.
Okay, so I'll move that we continue the hearing. I forgot where we are, for 45 Beacon Street, the preliminary subdivision application to May 15th at 7:30.
And I do just, want to remind abutters and those on the call that there is no subsequent notice mailed for this continuation. We'll post it online, but if you have any questions onto the date or application itself, please reach out via email, stop by town hall, or call me. I'm happy to help.
So again, the date that we're proposing is May 15th at 7:30.
Second that?
All righty, I'll do a roll call vote. Pam? Okay, Pam, we're coming back to you. I'm gonna ask Pam to unmute. John?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Yes. Pam said yes. Mark?
Yes, yes.
And Heather says yes.
Great. Thank you all. And
Right, thank you.
Angelo, Phil, I'll follow up with notes and then some.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you all very much.
Do we have anything we need to?
Were there,
They're just discussion based.
what were was there anything time sensitive? Will you remind me whether
No.
and how time sensitive it
Nope,
was?
nothing
Okay.
time sensitive.
Is it really, do we feel like it's 12:30
Because
right
it's like,
now?
no one?
Right?
Yes.
Like, that's the problem.
No, it's 10:30.
Is it 10:30?
We pushed the clocks ahead.
Yeah.
Oh. It's because this morning everyone got up and feeling like,
Yeah.
horrible.
That's why. Savings. You could put that in the minutes that Heather said how much she hates daylight savings time, and I don't think we should ever schedule one of these meetings on the
Oh,
day
yes,
after
yeah,
daylight savings
I'll
time.
do my best. So two things to consider without getting into two of the other topics listed just for your next meeting, board reorganization. Noted at the beginning, we do likely need to vote for a secretary / vice chair. I know it's close to July. We're getting close to July for the reorg, but just if you feel of a nomination or who might be considered for such. And the other, I don't know what to ask at this point, but executive session for the 459 Main Street appeal. Admittedly, I don't think, if there's a date between this week and next that works, we can tentatively schedule a meeting, though I'm not sure that the applicant can get us everything if the meeting is too soon. So, but if you happen to be available on the 20th, I can tentatively hold that date and see if we can get the requested materials by then or before then for your review. If not, I think we're just looking at trying to squeeze it in on April 10th. I'm away for 2 weeks in between, so
good for you.
Thank you.
So is that something that you would want me to attend? Because I don't know anything about that.
I don't see why not. CPDC standing member now, so.
You mean you don't feel like you have to, but yeah, it might be interesting.
Yeah.
You weren't named in the lawsuit.
But you can provide counsel to the rest of us.
I mean, really any date next week, but
March 20th works for me.
March 20th works for me.
Good for me. Pam?
I'm checking. March 20. Yep, looks good.
Okay. We'll roll with that. I'll follow up
if they can.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You say like a evening also, like 7:30?
Yeah, probably 7, I would aim for 7:30, whatever works for the group. 7:30 is fine. That would be it. I wouldn't put anything else on the agenda. So, okay, great.
Okay.
Noted.
And so I think it might be at the next meeting, we'll hit on the Oakland Road update and anything with MBTA communities. Is any of those getting urgent?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think we can adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Pam.